I almost started talking without having my mic here. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tales of Praxis. I'm Aaron Suduko, the founder of With the Terrible Fate. Excited to be continuing with you on our journey through the end of Tales of Symphonia. Sorry to be starting a little late today, one of those crazy Fridays, but excited to do some appreciation of some great video game storytelling with you on this Friday evening to ring in the weekend in the best of ways, in my opinion. And we can push it a little longer to make up for the late start if people are feeling up to that. We are at really, I think, what we would properly call the climax of the story. As we talked about last time, we now understand all of the stakes. You'll see I was peeking at the synopsis just to keep track of all the JRPG-ness that we went through last time. But really, I think the Cliff Notes, if you missed it or if you just want to recap, where we finally prepared to take the fight to Crucius in terms of confronting Mythos. Zelos appeared to betray the party, turning Colette over to Mythos and the powers that be in Crucius. And we had a whole lot of sacrifice with all of the party members except for Lloyd sacrificing themselves in order to further the mission of saving both worlds and Colette, only for them to thankfully be saved by Zelos, who it turned out was actually playing Crucius the whole time in order to try to acquire the material, I think? The material required to forge a ring that would allow Lloyd to wield the Eternal Sword, which we also learned is proof of the pact with Origin, something that Origin forged especially for Mythos, and that Lloyd, not a half-elf, needs a little help in order to be able to wield in order to save the world by reconstituting the original world back before it was split into Tetheala and Silveron. We had Martel actually show up, taking possession of Colette because Mythos succeeded in that, only for Martel to tell Mythos, surprise, surprise, I didn't want any of this. How could you misunderstand so badly what I meant by freeing the world of discrimination? So Mythos was not happy with that. He did what someone who misinterpreted the words of his sister so badly would be expected to do. Namely, he took her very next words and misinterpreted those, because Martel said something along the lines of, if this was what was going to come of this, then maybe the elves should have just stayed in their home on Daris Karlon in the first place, which led Mythos to say, yes, that's what I'll do. I'll just return to Daris Karlon and we'll leave, and that will be the right thing to make my sister happy. So Mythos is off to work on that. We are off at the behest of Kratos to face him by the Seal of Origin, which is in Heimdall, because we also learned that Kratos' life is itself the seal, and so we will need to release the mana from his body, potentially killing him, in order to form the pact with Origin in pursuit of the best outcome for both worlds. Since we now know that Kratos is Lloyd's dad, there's a lot to navigate there in terms of how Lloyd will make peace with that, and really think about his future and the world's future when he's only just coming to terms with his past. So, I think that's sufficient stakes. Excited to see how much of the story we get through this evening. I don't have a super firm memory of exactly how long is left, so I'd say we might be within striking distance of the ending, but my guess is we have a stream or two left in us beyond this, especially if people want to do side quests, which we've really just been digesting the main story for the sake of that, but there are many other ways in which to enjoy and appreciate this world if people find themselves having an appetite for that. Hey, good evening. Yes, welcome back. Sorry I was a little bit late, but glad to see you made it here, Chrissy. Alright, so we are off to Heimdall to find that Seal of Origin and Kratos waiting for us. That's no big question. I think I've talked myself into it at this point. The sequel of Tales of Symphonia, since it's one of those great classic stories that was also fortunate enough to get a sequel, which is on the Wii, so I will have to dust off my old Wii for the sake of it, but it'll be fun. Especially because I think I was talking about this earlier in the stream, but it was one of those games where I felt that I knew the original Tales of Symphonia so well from my many times playing it as a kid that I don't think I played the original right before I played the sequel, and I'm curious as to whether that that influenced my impression of it, because I really didn't have that positive of a feeling about the sequel when I first played it. So I want to go back to it right in series with the original and see if that kind of presents new sorts of continuity that I hadn't noticed before. Is that the worst news? I mean, on a sliding scale of what news is, but look, I think one of the best things to do as you age with a game is to revisit it and give it another chance, especially in the context of something like a remaster of the game that came before it. Yeah, I actually have. That's why I'm talking about revisiting it. I think especially if you're a fan of, the first game in a series or any game in a series, it can be worthwhile to give those other entries a chance, and to give them another chance, especially after you've had time away, you've played other things, you might have a different perspective on it. I'm not promising that anyone's going to love it, but I've said before in this chat, there are things about the game that, despite the fact that I really didn't like it the first time, I've found more memorable over the years than many things in other games that I felt as though I enjoyed more at the time I played them, and I think that alone warrants revisiting it. Yeah, see, so what are you doing laying into me if you've played it like 7 times? Come on. Well, the art of figuring out how to cheese a JRPG can be a meta game in itself, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, you're tuning in near the end of the stream. I put all the VODs on with the Terrible Fates YouTube channel, though, so if you feel inclined to check those out, you are more than welcome to. Granted, we have thought it would be the end of our journey more than once before, but this has a different feeling about it this time around. What? What do you mean? We have Sheena with us. Good. Just wasn't sure what you meant. Hey, I think it's impossible not to get some brain fog when you're working through a giant JRPG. Especially if you're just dropping in on the end game of a stream of one. have thought about pendants and like nice enamel pins before. If people would like that, I know it's the kind of thing that I would wear myself, which tends to be how I think about merch anyways. So yeah, I might seriously look into that. Yeah, I've actually played this game before a lot as a kid. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to stream this, was the fact that I played it many times. It was my first video game story, really, as a kid. And then I put it down for really over a decade, and the remaster is a nice opportunity to revisit it, I think. Especially since so much of like how I think about games and video game storytelling, really I think in ways that I hadn't even processed at the time or informed by this one. But I will say, since you're just stopping in, I'm trying to do a no spoiler run just for the benefit of people who might be watching and engaging with it for the first time. Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you checking. Yeah, I really like that. I think that could be attractive. Well, all right. Maybe I'll put a few thought cycles into thinking about merch if I know there might be some interest. That would be fun. Nice even just to wear at the cons and maybe hand out at the cons that we go to and talk at. But that's the theme of the game, Rain. We always look for another way. There is a nice cathartic feeling for me, too, of being able to have these intimate conversations in a quiet village like Heimdall between Lloyd and all the party members after they all, felt as though they were going to sacrifice themselves and give up their lives in the Tower of Salvation and the rush to Mythos. Nice to be back in the space where you can have just a quiet human conversation preparing for the next battle. They're magic words. They're patented by Zelos. No one else has ever said them before. No, yeah, I was saying at the top of this, we've really just been focusing on the main story to go through that narrative. So I kind of figure I'll ask people as we go through the final motions of the main story if they're up for any extra content or if they would rather just go on to the sequel. We could really go either way on it. So that's one of the reasons that it's so nuts for me to go back to this game now after so long is I cannot emphasize to you enough how many times I played this back to back as a kid. And so back in the day, I knew just in my mental map of everything, like, okay, go here for, this specific side quest, go here to start that, go here to get this costume or whatever. And now all of that has really fallen out of my mind. So I've just been I missed the conversation with Colette. Well, case in point, yeah, now it's much more of just discovering things as we go. Yeah, it's nuts, right? That's one of the reasons that I like going back to those really old games too, because they're like an old friend, but you also get to kind of discover them for the first time again. Like, there's lots I remember about this, but there's lots that I had forgotten, some of them being really key plot points. Like, I think the most recent one was I totally forgot about just Mythos' idea of the age of lifeless beings. So it's nice to be able to get, like, a second chance at experiencing these games for the first time. think we're still on the hunt for Regal and Sheena, if I'm not forgetting anyone. I guess it's over here. Sheena! She was kidnapped in the sense of going to the other side of the village, if that's what you meant. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know, though. I started a replay of Zisteria probably like a year ago, and I actually picked it up the other week because I was thinking about the age-old question of, once I put a JRPG down, okay, am I going to try to revive this playthrough, or should I start from scratch? Because I want to play that, kind of just for the sake of playing it, but also for the sake of playing the subsequent one that's called Tales of Berseria again, because it was framed in a really cool way as a prequel to Zisteria. But similar to what we were saying about the two Tales of Symphonia games, I originally played Berseria without having replayed Zisteria pretty close to that, just because I didn't know it was going to be a prequel. So I want to be able to have the context as I'm working through this broader project I have of playing through and analyzing the Tales series. Oh, there you go. You can always find it somewhere online if you look hard enough. Honor and accountability above all else for our good buddy Regal. I am kind of glad, all things considered, that we got the Flanor scene with him, because I think back in the day I did them all, but his was one that I did not naturally gravitate towards, and I think that as I've grown up to a different stage of my life, Regal's is a character that I've really come to appreciate a lot more. Oh, maybe we get to reset the scene with Colette too. Nope. Oh well.
What is it?
Everyone always knocking on this kid's door when he's trying to sleep. Oh man, speak of the devil.
Awake?
I couldn't really get to sleep.
I see. Then, would you like to come speak with me for a little while?
Yeah, this time totally by accident, because I don't want to spoil things for the people in chat who are watching who don't know, but you will obviously know what I'm talking about. I was trying to do something that I always did as a kid in Flanor in the heart-to-heart scenes with everyone that didn't trigger this time, which was very frustrating for me, but it made me realize that I had been playing through this without kind of thinking about the affinity levels between the characters, because I wanted to just kind of go into it as blind as I could be with having not played it for like 15 years or whatever, and just kind of naturally see how things would unfold. So these are very different than what my affinities would have been back in the day, but yeah, like I said, it's a good opportunity to bond with Regal. If there were a character that spoke to me now amongst the group, it would probably be either Kratos or Regal, so happy with Regal.
Okay then, just for a little while.
It's a strange feeling.
Huh? What is?
That your father appears younger than me.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. It doesn't feel real to me yet either. It feels more like he's my older brother.
Brother, huh? Yes, I could imagine that.
Although, I guess you could say the same about us.
I too have thought of you as a younger brother.
Oh, see, this is heartwarming in its own way.
I don't have any brothers, but if I had a younger brother, I imagine he might be like you.
If I was your brother, I'd probably be a lot more level-headed.
No, you really don't lose control of yourself. You may have gotten that from your father.
Regal, do you understand Kratos and the things he does?
Why do you ask?
I was thinking that you two are a little bit alike. You and Kratos. In a lot of ways.
You think? Even when I lost the one I loved, I don't think I lost control of myself. I even shocked myself at how calm and subdued I am all the time.
Really? But you sought revenge for Alicia, right? Whether that's a good thing or not, I'd hardly call that calm and subdued.
If that was really for Alicia's sake, or if it was to fill the void of my own sadness in losing her, I honestly don't know.
I think you think too hard about stuff all the time. What you said are the same things. How sad you are shows how important Alicia was to you.
I see. You always seem to find the simple truth.
People tell me I'm simple-minded. Maybe if they add the two of us together and divide by half, we'd be just right.
Oh, I love that.
Perhaps. When this journey is over, maybe I'll accompany you.
I know, right? I've been talking about this a lot on the stream, but I feel like people who don't play JRPGs give them so much crap for beating people over the head with the themes of the games and, you know, being kind of facile or not that sophisticated, and that is just so not true with so many of the Tales games, and this is a great example of it. I think it's really a literary game in terms of so many of the messages and the value of it being below the surface, but in a way that's really accessible if you take the time to kind of read it as a player.
And learn your way of thinking.
I don't know if learning from me is such a good idea.
Like I'll say, since you brought that up, yeah, it's all still relevant today. Are you kidding? I mean, maybe in some ways even more than when it came out. I was thinking one thing too, like this speaks to the subtlety of it, just as I was like listening to this conversation with Regal, is, you know, you lose Kratos for so much of the game, despite him being clearly such a key figure in terms of his relationship with Lloyd and Mythos and everyone. But talk about a JRPG where they really craft the characters to say interesting things about each other. I really feel like the more we learn about Regal, and if you get him to open up in scenes like this, he really is kind of a lens of his own into Kratos, since they went through such similar experiences and probably in a lot of ways are carrying around much of the same guilt in terms of the outcome of their partners and those relationships. Yeah, absolutely. I promised everyone at the beginning of the stream when he was just being a pervert, like, don't worry, he'll get more interesting, he'll get more nuanced. Those who have been here from the beginning will have to be the judge of whether that promise paid off, but I find him more interesting every time I play it.
But if you want to come along with me after this journey is over, that's fine by me. It'll be like killing two birds with one stone.
Two birds with one stone? Will I be of use to you somehow?
Once the worlds are reunited, I'm planning on collecting all the X-spheres. I mean, we can't just leave them out there the way they are now, right?
And I don't, listen, I mean, I'm not asking for him to necessarily be redeemed in, like, the moral sense as a character, but at least redeemed in terms of being interesting enough to think about in some complicated ways. But I take the point. It's like begrudging acceptance of Zelos' value in the plot. I'm very much the same way.
Indeed. Perhaps we should allow these sad beings to continue their sleep forever. Otherwise, history may repeat itself.
Well, it's interesting hearing that line of Regal's. So for those who don't know, I'm just coming off of way too much time spent living in the Xenoblade Chronicles world through a variety of projects and playthroughs. But this connection I had never thought about before, but there are some interesting sort of philosophical challenges about the ethics of like X-spheres and what to do with those lives that kind of echo a lot of stuff that happens in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in terms of core crystals and how people think about what to do and how to live with blades, for anyone who's familiar with that. This is another reason, like, playing through a game again in a new context when you've played other games, like, it leads you to see that game differently, it leads you to see the other games you play differently. I love that.
I thought stuff like X-Sphere shipping records left at your company might turn out to be useful.
I'd like you to allow me to join you on that journey.
Really? To be honest, I don't even know if I'll be able to collect all of them in my lifetime.
I expect my business experience may be of use in accomplishing that.
Lloyd, you handle the tech side, and I'll handle the business side.
And besides, Alicia would surely prefer that I help you, rather than return to my cell and idle my time away.
It'll be a tremendous help to have you around.
My strength is yours, even after our current journey ends.
There's also, I mean, this is something that's subtle, since we're appreciating, like, the subtlety of the game's storytelling right now, right? Like, it doesn't beat us over the head with this too, but as we're reflecting on Regal, like, the dude who even now is as penitent as possible for the right reasons in terms of, like, morally wanting to do right by the world and himself and Alicia, that he would still even consider locking himself in a cell, when the one who had him imprisoned and who was, like, playing off of him in the first place when we first encountered him was the Pope, who was, like, the most corrupt individual with no firm sense of how to even relate to his own daughter, the half-elf. So, talk about the great classic irony of, you know, a prisoner who's in better moral standing and better justified than his jailer.
You are my new hope for the future. We will move forward together.
And in the next scene, Regal teaches Lloyd how to fight with two swords while wearing handcuffs. It just becomes a really advanced greatsword with two blades, like a guitar with two necks. No, I'm welling up too. I shouldn't say that because I oftentimes do cry during JRPGs and video games in general, so I'm kind of afraid that will actually happen on stream, but I don't know. Maybe the performance demands of streaming and playing through with an audience will deter my tear ducts. I'm kind of hopeful that's the case. Don't have to clean that shit up on air, man. Alright. Think we're good on items? Yeah, we can go get a few more gels. Why not? I don't even remember if the duel with Kratos lets you use items. But gotta be a Boy Scout. Always come prepared, right? Oh, we're rich by now. Call us the Moneybags Party. And yet, I'm telling you, that's the real, like, power creep of JRPGs. The rags to riches of Aaron not being able to afford anything ever for the first, like, 2/3 of the game, followed by being an instant gillionaire, or whatever you want to call it, by the end of the game. I know. Believe me, I've put more thought than I should into figuring out if there's a way to get my darling corgi daughter, Evie, into the shot. But I don't know how to do it. It's hard, because, like... And this is, like, such a dog dad thing for me, but she feels so left out and gets so mad when I stream now, because, like, I have this green screen behind me, I'm in, like, half of the apartment that's walled off, and so she really, like, doesn't know how to relate to that yet, especially since I just started. But, like, she loves being with me on the couch when I'm gaming and streaming and really doing anything, so if it weren't such a subpar viewing experience, I would definitely still be doing that. No, listen, I don't care how many achievements they make around getting a certain amount of ridiculous riches in any video game or any JRPG. No one needs to get 10 million gold. I say that as someone who previously spent way too many hours getting literally everything in, well, many video games, but this one especially. Most of the time it was worthwhile, but not all the time, especially in this. I don't know if you're a fan or knowledgeable about other Tales games, but if you are, you might appreciate this. So the first time I tried Tales of Xillia, right, I got maybe like 5 hours into the story, and then I got to this area, well, talking about cheese and JRPGs, right, I got to an area of the field that butted up against an area that was made for a further along part of the story, so all the monsters were much stronger, but still within level for you to actually kill. So I was like, that's hilarious. I'll just farm these and make everyone really strong. And I somehow sunk like literally maybe 10 hours into just doing that, because it was when I was still at university, and apparently grinding was what I needed in order to process all my other stuff in classes or whatever. And then I got bored of grinding and like put the game down. It was funny. You know where we are in Symphonia now? Like you've caught up, or are you talking about the area I meant in Xillia? Yeah. It's a thing for that exact reason, right? Like it's easy to grind on. That's one I still have to go back to though. It's nuts. It's like I usually have a better handle on why I put games down because it's pretty rare for me. And the Tales games, I will play any of them blind because I love the series. I think it has a great art to really long but also compelling interactive storytelling. But Xillia, I have picked up more than once. I think twice, but maybe 3 times. And I've never gotten more than like 10 or 15 hours through it. I intend to sit down and make myself do it within the next few months because the whole conceit of this project, Tales of Praxis, is to kind of evaluate and live with the whole series. But it's hard for me. I don't know why. Yeah, I think that's right. See, you're calling back all this knowledge that I had back when I was working through it myself way back in the day. But that's a name of an item that feels familiar for sure. That's a great line. I think about that one all the time, especially in a JRPG where the normal party structure is 8 people. Don't forget that Kratos was your 9th companion. Oh, that's poetry. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so see, and unlike Tales of Graces then, Chrissy, I have no standing to tell you were in the wrong for bailing on Xillia, excuse me, because the same thing happened to me. I was too emphatic about my gestures, and so I cut off my own audio. Tales of the Abyss, well, they did port that. They ported it to the 3DS. I know what you mean, but like, that's almost the sad thing. Like, they ported it to a handheld, and so they might even consider it already ported, and so they won't push it to, like all the other systems like they did with Symphonia. I don't know. Here's my thing. So this would also be true if they ported it to the Switch, so I get that. But let me say my piece about the 3DS port, because I originally played it on the PS2, and then I replayed it in the last few months on the 3DS. And actually, you might be interested. I'm working on like an article kind of reflecting on the story and studying it right now. So I promised that this week, but it'll probably be next week because that's how life goes. And it's more complicated than I thought in a good way. But what I really liked about the 3DS was I think there's something really special about what so many people have done for so long with books in terms of like bedtime reading and having that sacred time when you dive into an interesting text, like when you're in bed and sort of winding down your day. And so I did that in my bed with Tales of the Abyss, kind of treating it as I would like a book because it's a handheld console. It's easy to do that. And it was like a totally different experience. I feel like those contexts in which you experience a game physically can really inform how you think about its story. Like I took different things from it this time than I did way back when I played it on the PS2 like years ago. But again, I get what you're saying. Of course you could do that with the Switch too. It's just like, when you have a big ass TV and you can plug it into the TV, it's harder, at least for me, to justify playing it in the handheld formation. So the 3DS was a nice forcing function for me personally. Also, come on, it has not been ported 5 times, Tales of Symphonia. It was ported to the PS3, right, with the sequel, but I get what you mean. They have so many titles that are masterpieces, it would be nice to give some love to some other ones. Yeah, it's special, isn't it? The first game that I did it with in recent memory was, I replayed A Link Between Worlds, the Legend of Zelda title for the 3DS last year, while I was in the middle of being buried in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and writing about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And it was like just such almost a meditative experience. Like I would bet dollars to donuts that my quality of sleep was better than when I was winding down my day with A Link Between Worlds versus, if I had just like had an hour of no blue light from the computer screens or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, okay, maybe I'm lumping some of those ports that you're talking about together, so fair enough, point taken. And look, one of the things that I'm interested in thinking about after I finish Symphonia is I will never be able to answer like what my favorite Tales game is, but I oftentimes have a toss-up in my head when I'm thinking about the ones that really stay with me between Symphonia and Abyss. So I have nothing but love for Tales of the Abyss, and I do wish that more people had the opportunity to play it, so it'd be a good candidate for sure. Yeah, you just bought, A Link Between Worlds, Chrissy? Yeah, tell me more about it. What have you liked about it? What have you found remarkable? For me, it's such a simple story, but it was really one that, like, was impactful to me, because so much of it is about, obviously, straddling 2 worlds, and I played it right when I started university and kind of moved away from home for the first time, so I was very much, like, in that position, navigating it, so I think it was sort of a cathartic game for me in that way. Wish I could make that sound effect when I walked, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I think the technical term everyone has settled on is it's like a spiritual successor for A Link to the Past, but which I actually still haven't played. It's on my list and in my library, but that is an endless list, as I don't have to tell you. But yeah, it is. It's very charming, but like charming in a way where I don't know. Like I look at the art and style of Link's Awakening, which is one that I still haven't played, and that's also very charming, but in a way that kind of strikes me as a little more childish. Whereas with A Link Between Worlds, it feels like just cozy in a way that's very easy for me to slide into as an adult. That is what I've heard. That's why it's on the list. The list is just too damn long.
Do not think ill of us.
Oh man, so it's been a running gag on the stream so far for the benefit of those who haven't been here that back before I totally changed my kit in terms of what streaming tech I had to work with, the volume in the battle totally overrode anything that I was saying, so it was impossible to hear me. And somehow I think I just experienced that in reverse. Like that hasn't happened before for my headphones, but it cranked the volume like way up when I went into battle, so I feel like I was shouting just to hear myself think. So what I'm saying is now I know what it's been like for you, and I deeply apologize. I'm gonna switch back to Sheena.
You're gonna regret this. Are you okay? Are you ready?
Yeah. Still can't land that with consistently.
Thrust! You ready for this?
Awesome.
Ready? Field barrier! Spirit seal! Run! Serpent seal! Pinion! Help no way! Healing circle!
Give me that, please. Oh, didn't like that.
Demon seal! Help is on the way. Nurse! We won.
I don't know how the gain is on my mic, if you can hear it or not, but I think Eevee is frustratingly taking out her separation from me on her yellow squeaky bone, which is her absolutely favorite toy. So if you hear very quiet squeaking in the background, I apologize on behalf of the Sudoku family.
Goodbye, worthless enemies.
Okay, so since you said that, speaking of game series that are not on my list, can you pitch Harvest Moon to me? Because that's something that, like, from the time I was a kid, like, I think I have a memory of vividly discovering Harvest Moon in Blockbuster, back when Blockbuster was a thing, but I've never been able to get into that. So pitch me on why I should play that.
We have no choice.
Maybe I actually should be manning Lloyd just to get in the rhythm of his attacks for the fight with Praxis. Have you thought of that?
Do not bother us.
Okay, so it's like wholesome, like just slice of life, cozy anime stuff. Just like a nice world to inhabit if you like that genre. Is that the idea? Fun and rich story, yes. I think the thing that's that's kept me away from the, like, just life sim genre or farming sim. What would you even call that? Because that's a genre. Like, there's so many games that fall into that category, and I feel like building up a village and sort of in Animal Crossing style and like tending to crops is not like sufficiently interesting to like keep me engaged as if it were a story. But it sounds like maybe there's more of a story than I realized. I didn't even know it had like a campaign or whatever you want to call it. Harvestella? I haven't even heard of that one. Is that recent or old school? Okay. Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I think like being able to choose and determine relationships between characters is one of the really cool things about video games, and it's part of why I love the Tales games. So I'm not averse to that per se. I just really enjoy it in the context of like a story that unfolds and kind of the epic plot that a JRPG does. And I don't even know enough about the genre of the farming sim to understand if it works in the same way. But my folk understanding was that it didn't. Oh, okay, so pretty recent. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up. Never even heard of it. Although I do remember there was one Nintendo Direct they did a few months ago that was like, felt like literally 2 out of 3 games they were announcing was a farming sim, so maybe it was one of those. I think I might have accidentally gotten us lost. Nah, we're good. I think. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Some of these things I remember. I do love Square Enix. Well, most of the time. I have strong opinions about Square Enix all of the time.
Is there no other way?
Are you still thinking like that? You'll die if you fight me with any doubt left in your heart. If you want the pact with Origin, then you must defeat me.
Oh, that sounds interesting. That's another game I've never even heard of. I'll have to look it up. Oh yeah, I said this last time. I need to do a roundup of all the recs that come through chat, because there's no way I'm going to remember all of these, and every single one, based on what y'all tell me, sounds like there's something worth exploring in it.
So, that's your way. Everyone, leave this to me.
You're going to fight alone? You and Lloyd most certainly should duel one-on-one. Is that not the closure you desired?
Said one big brother figure to another.
You are even less capable than I am at expressing your feelings.
Oh, I forgot about that line. That's such a great line. Oh, Regal, my man. Listen, I'm a fan of crying for great stories, so that's not a warning, that's an advertisement. Alright, let's see if Aaron can handle a one-on-one duel. This could kind of go either way based on my track record in the game so far, and the fact that I haven't been playing as Lloyd, but let's do it.
I'm not gonna hold back this time.
I know. I won't either.
Oh, not a great start. Okay, we can use items. Thank God. Love this track.
No way!
Bro.
Rising
Lightning blade.
There! No way!
Fierce demon fan.
Take sword rain!
Lightning blade. Lightning blade.
Take Tiger Rain Alpha!
Demon
No way!
fan. Super lightning blade.
Take Demon Fan! Rain Alpha!
Super lightning blade.
There!
Take this. Thunder blade.
Guardian!
Oh, this is a great play on Kratos' theme too. Like I can hear his leitmotif in this battle. soundtrack.
Double demon.
Why does it have to be this way, Kratos, my man?
Pretty good.
Oh, lightning blade. Oh, super lightning blade.
Rising mountain.
Fierce
Why super lightning blade?
demon fan. Double demon.
No way.
Flame.
Oh, I thought I was gonna get him that time.
Pretty good.
Take this. Thunderblade.
It's over.
Put one in the books for victories that don't make you feel great.
You've grown strong.
It's art to watch him. It's pure art. It's funny because as much as they're both magic swordsmen, I feel that way so strongly about Kratos and yet not about Zelos. So, I mean, talk about characters having their own attributes and value despite having the same fighting style, right? No, I don't, maybe it's a dig at Zelos, but just very different characters with the same techniques, let's put it that way.
Thanks to you,
Aren't you going to finish me?
I've defeated Kratos the Angel, the one who betrayed us. And I forgive Kratos, the hero of the ancient war, who helped us. That's all.
Love that.
And I thought I'd finally earned the right to die.
And see, this is why I'm almost kind of happy we stumbled into having Regal as our best friend, as you said, and had those scenes with him, because I feel like a line like this of Kratos' I hear so differently, just with Regal's sense of guilt and the need for redemption fresh in my mind.
But you're as soft-hearted as ever.
Hold on. You can't be... Are you going to break the seal?
That is what you desire, is it not?
But then you'll... Kratos! Don't worry, he's alive. I gave him some
My
of my
man. You and the true MVP. From trying to assassinate Kratos all the way back in Haima to giving up some of his mana to save Kratos. Ah! Almost.
Kratos, are you really okay?
That's what I'm saying. That's like, thank you for, being someone who gets the Tales games, who can, vouch for this with me. Like, the way they weave even their side characters and people who seem like villains or one-offs into just a really compelling overall experience and touch all of the other characters in different ways. Like, Ewan is a great example of that.
Looks like I failed to die once more.
Yeah, that's a game that I would love to play.
You stupid jerk! You can die anytime!
That's part of the things about these games being so good and compelling that's frustrating, right? Like, I feel the same way about various parts of Tales of the Abyss, which I won't spoil in case anyone watching hasn't played that and wants to, but it has a similar structure in terms of talking about the earlier history of the world, and it's like, man, those characters are so interesting and what they did is so interesting. I want a window into that history too, like, make that a game. Yeah, I get what you mean, exactly.
But when you die, that's the end! You want him to live in eternal damnation? Who said anything like that? What will you accomplish by dying? Nothing! There is no meaning in dying!
You're right. To think I had to have my son teach me such an obvious lesson.
Kratos!
Oh, so you can't hear her? Well, that bums me out. I'm sorry. Actually, if you can hear her, I think she's frustrated because she has put her bone out of reach because she wants to play with me. So I'm just going to quickly get the bone out, and hopefully that will relax her a bit. So then we're not competing with my darling dog. I asked one thing of you. No, it's not okay. Away. Away. You're out there now, okay? Enough. It's literally like, you know, the game that most normal dogs play, which is called fetch. So this is like what I call reverse fetch, because she will literally force her toys into places that are out of reach for her and then bark at me until I get them for her. And that is her favorite game in the entire world. She gets so much joy out of that. I would put her in my lap if she would tolerate that. Maybe she's really used to like my carrying her when I take her up and down the stairs, because corgis aren't supposed to do stairs. So maybe if I got one of those like baby carriers, what is that called? A Bjorn or something? Like maybe we could work something there. It's worth keeping in mind.
Kratos will be fine. Form the pact with Origin.
You who lack the right.
My name's Lloyd, but if you want to come out swinging.
I have lost faith in all things. Have you come here to disappoint me as well?
And this right after Martel too, right? Where we have it foregrounded with her like coming out of her 4,000-year coma and saying, man, this world was not what I wanted, and why did my brother do this? And then to turn around and have it with a summon spirit who's so unlike the others is just completely disillusioned with the way the world ended up. Like, it's devastating to recall those figures from ancient history and see how unhappy they are with how history has evolved since their last involvement with humans. It's another set of arms, right? That's always how I read it, at least. Like he had a pair of arms that was crossed in front of his chest, and then like another set that was just ready to go for, I don't know, ancillary reasons. It's when you want it both ways, when you want to seem like tough and withdrawn, but also doing like the power stance.
Origin, are you bound by a pact to Mythos?
Yeah, that's one of those cases where the graphics of 2023 as opposed to 2003 would actually help to clarify how to interpret the character sprite.
My pact with Mythos was broken the moment I was freed. Never again shall anyone make use of my power.
Even if we make a vow, we need the Eternal Sword.
What accent is this also? Chrissy, you're British. Is this like... Is it some kind of Welsh dialect that he's working with? I can't place it.
I want to use the Eternal Sword to reunite the two worlds and revive the giant Carlon tree. Unless we do something, the worlds will never stop vying for mana, and everyone will suffer.
That situation was born from the weakness of creatures who are unable to accept those that are different.
That may be true, but mistakes can be corrected.
Some things cannot be corrected.
Even so, we have to do everything we can.
Exactly. I'm not gonna give up. From the moment they are born, everyone has the right to live. I want to reclaim that. Humans, elves, half-elves, dwarves, and even summon spirits. Everyone has a right to life.
Origin. For almost an eternity, I thought that the only way to save this world was to cling to Mythos' ideals.
Interesting. Maybe that's why I couldn't place it. It sounds weird to me too.
Just as you once agreed with Mythos' ideals, I too thought his was the only way. But Lloyd is different. He taught me that in order to change something, you must do it yourself. It is not enough to merely rely on someone else and go along with their ideals.
You who possess the right of summoning, make your vow.
Origin, then...
I will try once more to believe in people.
Pretty good accolades for the party if they're able to literally convince one of the arbiters of the world to give them another chance when he was so withdrawn and reluctant just moments ago.
I shall do my duty in order to create a world you speak of. A world in which everyone can live equally.
I, Sheena, have but one vow. To reclaim a world in which everyone can live freely. A world in which no life is sacrificed meaninglessly. That's all.
Then we shall create a pact upon that vow. Now fight.
But Origin, we already beat Kratos. 2 boss fights in a row? Origin, why? I have a song in my head, but it sounds like your memory might be a little better than mine, so I'm interested to see if it's the same song that I'm thinking of. I think the one I'm thinking of is called Decision, but I think it might be a little later in the game yet. Who do I want to swap out? I'll swap out Regal. Alright. Let's do this. Oh, yes, I thought it was a different song than just the standard Summon Spirit song. Yes, I had a whole rant on one stream, I think probably the first time this played, against Undini, about how top-notch this song is. Like, even before I started replaying this, for, like, the past however many years since I played Tales of Symphonia most recently, this song still goes through my head, like, once a week. It truly does slap so hard. Just that one part, we're not there yet, but you know the part. Kill for that, any day, dude. There it is. Yeah. Or, what do they call the mode above that in Tales of Symphonia? Is it Manic or something? Mania! Yeah, that was close. Yeah, it was the same way back in the day. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's Mania. Thought I had another summon equipped, but that's okay. That works. Do it.
Extraordinary. I will believe in all of you.
Do not
Love
bother
that.
us.
Again, like, I don't find it cheesy or ham-fisted. I find it heartwarming that, like, the parties' just willingness to trust in each other's, beliefs and capacity to forge the future of the world is enough to convince a god like that moments after he had given up to just genuinely believe in them and support them. Thank you. WP Origin, WP.
And Lloyd, I place my power in your hands. With that power, transform the Eternal Sword into a blade to save all life. However, the Eternal Sword remains, as by Mythos' pact, unusable by those who lack the blood of elves. You must master the sword by your own power, and forge a new bond with it.
It's a nice little microcosm of everything they've been going through in the game in terms of figuring out the kind of weapon that they want to forge, so to speak, and the bond that they have with it, in terms of how they use their power and for what ends in the world.
You
Oh boy.
There's no time. I'll take your body.
This is we were talking about things that I totally forgot after so many years of not playing this. This is one, and like you said, it's such a memorable scene, but it was not fresh in my head, and I got to be surprised and horrified by it all over again.
No! No, it's Mythos. He survived in the Crucius crystal. Lloyd's body will be taken over unless we do something.
No! I won't let you!
My main man.
Damn, you interfered! Fine, I'll just take this body.
Regal! Stop! Let him go! We promised that we'll go on a journey together when the world is reunited.
I also forgot like how many touch points in the story they have with the person with whom you have highest affinity after the Flanor scene. Like the Flanor sequence is what's stuck in my head, but they really do a good job of calling the story back to it and making it feel like that particular bond that you've forged with that other character in the party pays off.
Let him go!
Yeah, exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth. Yep.
What do I care? I'm leaving this filthy world behind.
All the Grand Cardinals, honestly, I had forgotten how much just individual, really compelling character and identity they had. Even Magnius, like first one right off the bat, like he's simple, but simple in a very satisfying way. The line he has going into battle is one of the ones that still lives rent-free in my head to this day. You really think you're gonna live through this? But yeah, poor Pronima's ultimate execution at the hands of Yggdrasil. That's tough. She has a bad outcome by anyone's standards.
It's Mythos. He sealed off the route to Darius Karlan. Damn! We'll evacuate the elves for now. The entire village will be destroyed unless we do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like she always wanted to be more than she was, like one of his seraphim as opposed to just one of the leaders of the Desians. Kavar is special too, but in a much less sympathetic way. And more in a, oh, you really deserve to get mega slaughtered by Kratos kind of way. Big time. That holds up as one of my favorite scenes. And, Kratos just runs him through 3 times. That's another thing, like, you know, for folks who are like seeing the game for the first time through this stream, think back to stuff like that Human Ranch with Kavar and how Kratos just totally annihilated him, and now with the understanding that Kratos is Lloyd's father, like, suddenly that makes a lot more sense and has a hell of a lot more pathos, doesn't it? It's exactly why he had just such indignation towards Kavar. My sentiments exactly, genius. We didn't want you to come into our village, but it would be great if you could save the village. Nothing like an existential catastrophe to lead racists to reconsider one another, I guess. Yeah, that's right, exactly. And again, the game doesn't beat you over the head with this, but the fact that they have Presea as the one talking to Lloyd in that skit and really kind of reaffirming to him that they care about Regal and want to save him and that they recognize how important he is to everyone and to Lloyd, like, that says so much about Presea and kind of what she's gained over the course of this journey without saying it explicitly. I guess I should. Oh, there we go. Whoa. What a visual. Like from Jacob's Ladder to total apocalypse in just a few moments.
What is that?
That is Darius Karlon.
Impossible. How could a planet exist so close?
She asked not that long after learning about the existence of a parallel world also very close by to Silverant.
It is the eternal sword that makes the impossible possible. It was hidden by the protective barrier projected from the Tower of Salvation, but it has always existed there for 4,000 years.
Yes.
Tabitha! Ah, she made it! Full recovery for the MVP of characters.
And now Mythos with the great seed in hand.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's debatable. I think the way in which she played it, or at least I read it in this most recent playthrough, was she had like faint recollections of another world from her childhood, but she didn't really understand until Sheena started hinting that she was from a world that was not this world. But I get what you mean.
Is trying to leave this land and take Darius Karlon with him. Tabitha, you're feeling better? Yes.
Wait a minute. Darius Karlon is a mass of mana. And the Great Seed is the seed of the giant tree, right? If he takes both of them, what's gonna happen to this world?
It will wither and die from mana deprivation.
This is a much bigger problem than reuniting the worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I read it as like, because this is an interesting thing too, of like, in Symphonia, I think even more than some of the other games, like how characters discover or come to terms with their past. So, like on this playthrough of it, at least, it really felt to me like a unearthing for her of something that was like core to who she is, that she knew at one point but had forgotten, which kind of encapsulates a lot of what Rain is about, for me at least. Yeah, like vaguely recollected dreams or something like that.
What the hell are you guys talking about? Our friend just got kidnapped. What are we gonna do, Lloyd? What else? We're going after Mythos.
How? The Tower of Salvation was destroyed.
Use the Eternal Sword. If you really made a pact with Origin, the sword will surely respond to you.
Sometimes he can be the realist in the group, doesn't I mean, someone's got to say it.
With its power over time and space.
But Altessa is not well enough to move. Who's going to craft the Ring of the Pact?
If only we knew another dwarf.
Dad.
Hello!
Dirk?
Yeah, he's our only hope. We'll go to Silverant.
Wait. I'm going with you.
All right.
Oh, Kratos. All right, so I think this is the right place to explain to people who are watching the stream who didn't know what I was talking about and so sad about last time in the playthrough, because I thought I had done things right to make something happen later in the game, and I royally messed up just based on how long it had been since I'd played the game. But one of the things that's really cool and very like subliminal or below the surface in terms of how the game's story evolves based on your relationships with characters is that, like we've been talking about in this stream, there are these like background affinity systems that track how close Lloyd is with other members of the party based on things like those glowing circle skits that we see in the overworld and whom he chooses to bring with him on the ranch missions where they have to split up, things like that. So the people who stay behind in Flanor when the rest of the group goes with the doctor to take care of Altessa as like his convoy or whatever the pretense is, the ones who stay behind are the ones with whom you have the highest level of affinity. And if Kratos is in your top 3 of affinity for other members in the party relative to Lloyd, then what happens is there are still 3 people from the current party who come and ask Lloyd if he wants to talk, but then if you reject them all, which was why I was doing the rejections in the first place, then actually Kratos comes, you have a conversation with him, and it pretty radically changes things, which is to say, when Zelos betrays everyone at the Tower of Salvation, he actually straight up betrays them to the point that you have to fight him and kill him, and then it's later at this point, after you've fought Kratos and made the pact with Origin, that Kratos actually rejoins your party permanently as the Kratos member that would have otherwise been Zelos. So you see, based on how the stream has gone, how different that is than this. And I will admit, if it wasn't obvious from the previous streams, I'm a huge fan of Kratos. I think he's a tremendously interesting and complex character. And so I really got into this rhythm when I played it over and over again as a kid of just, knowing how to prioritize his affinity, and so just always making that the outcome. So I really, had it coded as part of the story, which was why I was kind of so flustered and flabbergasted on the last stream when that distinctly did not happen. I was thinking about it, and I think, I was so invested in playing through the game blind for the first time and, managing a stream for the first time on top of it, that I think we just, like a lot of the little side events and ancillary conversations that impact affinity, I think we did not do. And so that is my best explanation of why he wasn't in the top 3. And so that's why I was so baffled when we just went right into the conversation with Regal instead of being able to reject him, because I was waiting on Kratos to show up, man. But this is nice because, especially given that I hadn't done the Zelos playthrough in a while, for all the shit we've been giving Zelos, which is warranted, it's nice to see like the full progression of his character in terms of how things go if he does come back and sort of redeem himself as much as is possible for Zelos, at least. Let's put it that way. I know, and that's exactly what I was saying. Like, especially in comparison with other games who just broadcast so much about, oh, the power of choice will change the narrative and you can do this thing or that thing, and oftentimes it has less of an impact on you as a player. For an old school JRPG like this, Tales of Symphonia, to have something so radical that it doesn't even tell you about, like, you really just have to discover it as a kid. And I think that was part of what drew me into really not just this game and series, but video game storytelling more broadly. The idea that, like, you don't just have an impact on the world, but you kind of discover what your impact is by engaging with the story. And that's really cool. I wish more games did stuff like that still. All right. On that note, back to Silverrun. It's kind of nice, right? We can appreciate it for what it is, because this way, like, Zelos is alive, and as you can see, Kratos is still alive, so we have, like, a net gain of one character we care about who's alive relative to the other way, where Zelos doesn't quite make it. Gives the game a different contour of sadness, let's put it that way. Oh, I don't need to go into the base, right? I need to go over it. There we go. But yeah, and Chrissy, to the point of your comment, that's exactly what I was trying to say in a lead up to Kratos showing up in Flanor. Was like, if you were just going into this game for the first time as a kid, like, you know, you understand that the relationship between Lloyd and Colette is coded as the kind of right one. She comes to your door and asks, "Hey, do you want to talk?" Like, of course you're going to say yes, and so you're never going to even like know to say no and discover this whole other dimension of the story unless you really just fall in love with the game so much or hear something from a friend of yours who played it or whatever to just test its boundaries and explore what else is possible in the world. I think that's a big part of what gives the series, but this game especially, its unusual characteristics. I'm the same way though, and that's kind of why, like, I didn't have it in my head manage the relationships tactically, and so throughout a lot of the stream, you might recall, like, I also defaulted to whatever option was like supportive of the other character. I really think I was thinking about how Regal ended up in the top 3, and I think it had to be a combination of the paucity of other optional content that I did, and then choosing to really support him unequivocally back when the party learned everything about Alicia and what Regal did in Altamira. I'm sure that really cranked up the affinity level between Lloyd and Regal a lot.
So, you want me to forge the Ring of the Pact?
Yeah, I think, thankfully, games like Tales of Symphonia, at least to the best of my recollection, based on what we've just played through together, don't really have any of those. I think they do all really advance things in different ways, but yeah, that really grinds my gears when games try to act as though the avatar has choice or agency, but then it's really just like, oh, but you have to choose the right path to keep going. Unless you, like, do something meaningful and interesting in the story with that lack of choice. Like, I always think of when Capra Gabra asks Link in Ocarina of Time, do you understand your destiny? And you get the yes-no prompt to something as big and cosmic as that. And it's like, that to me feels very thematically consonant, where it's like, oh, it's your destiny, so of course you have to do it, but you have to, like, choose to do it even though that's not really something within your power. But few and far between is the game that does that successfully, I feel like. You know, I'm sure I did the Rain best friend route way back in the day. It's like I said, I went through my mental Rolodex of, like, the Flanor scenes when that happened with Regal, and I had pretty distinct memories of all of them, so I think I did do it with every party member at some point, but not enough that I can vividly remember it. I've already decided to suck it up and replay, like, the remastered version probably a healthy number of times, so any excuse to go back to my childhood, right? Total regression, as Arrested Development would say.
A dwarf who's losing his skills by living on the surface?
There's no one else. The dwarf that has the skills is unable to move.
Dad, please.
I've gathered all of the necessary items.
This is adamantite for polishing? What's this piece of wood?
Is this sacred wood?
This must fuel the fire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're dedicated to the one relationship, sometimes that means casting the others aside. In this game, as in life, right? There's something, like, I don't know, maybe uncomfortably realistic about that. And think about where they start.
Is that why you were traveling all over Tetheala? To prepare all of this?
He was with them the whole time, you guys.
I see. So everything is set.
That's the real twist, and the perfect kind of twist for a game that's so built on the radical trust of others. Like, the twist being that one of the first guys who seems to betray you was actually with you and supporting you in his way the whole time. Like, there's a special kind of wholesome to that, I think, and just a kind of positive sense of empowerment in the narrative that you didn't get in games for a while. I feel like it's coming back in modern games, this idea of just like positivity and sincerity. We were talking about that way earlier in the stream's history. But for a while, it was all focused on irony and subversion and kind of grim, unexpected twists. So it's nice to have something like this from the past instead.
I can't very well refuse after you've gone through so much trouble now, can I? And I suppose it won't hurt me to help out my dearest son. After all, I'm his father too. Dwarven vow number 1. Work together for the sake of a peaceful world.
And if you think about what it takes to write like a JRPG story with so many moving pieces over so many hours, right? I mean, just stop and think about how cool it is that they put together a narratively compelling reason to get Dirk and Kratos in the same room after Lloyd figures out that Kratos is his birth dad. Because they didn't have to do this. They could have just said that Altessa had recovered. But the opportunity for Lloyd to kind of adjudicate his two-world history by thinking about his relationship with those two dads is such a nice microcosm of everything the party has been wrestling with the two worlds of Silverot and Tefeala.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, there you go. That's an easier one, that accent, right?
With this,
more consistent.
I'll be able to use the Eternal Sword, right? Dad! Kratos! What's wrong?
Lloyd, you've really grown stronger. I never expected you to be able to inflict such a serious wound on my angelic form.
Yeah, so see, this is why he's not be able to come with us, whereas had things gone differently in Flanor with the affinities like I was talking about, things would go a different way now, and we'd be taking it to Mythos with Kratos.
Take this, and stop Mythos. I don't think I'll be able to help you anymore.
Dude, I was so excited about this, because I even, I have a pin of Kratos from this Tales of Symphonia soundtrack edition that I have, and so I wore that when I lectured at PAX, and I was all like, oh, it's going to be great to bring back Kratos in the stream and talk about all this stuff, but we still talked about why it's cool. It's not the same as actually experiencing it, but yeah. Should look it up. If you haven't played the game and you're interested in this, you should look up how these key moments go if you get Kratos back, because it's worth your while in my view.
Okay.
That's a marvelous blade. I doubt you have a sword in your possession to match it.
Really?
Take this with you. It's a present I promised you. Now that you've grown all up, I can entrust you with the greatest sword I ever forged.
Wow. I'll become even stronger with these two swords.
A sword from each of his dads with which to unite the two worlds. Like, how perfect is that, right? It seems obvious because it all comes together so well, but especially if you play a lot of JRPGs, you understand there are so many different points along that tens of hours or hundreds of hours journey where things can go wrong. So for it to come together this well at the end, it just really melts my heart as a gamer and just a lover of stories.
Thanks, Dad. And Kratos.
His name is Kratos now, actually, Lloyd, if you've been listening to yourself.
I'm sorry I forced everything upon you.
Yeah, two dads, exactly.
I have great dads. One made a ring for his son using the lost arts, and another risked his life to protect his son in secrecy.
You can't beat that. You could try, but you can't beat that. Oh, man. I might cry before this is over, if I'm being real. I got chills just from that line. So, buckle up. I'm not making any promises, except that we're going to have a good time.
Yeah? You've got great parents.
Yeah. Well, I'm off. Dad. Everyone, let's go.
All right. This song too, I mean, it's understated, but it's such just quiet, diligent optimism. The right tone for preparing to head off in the final battle for a game like this. King of the Spirits. Spirit of Spirits. I want to go back to the... Oh, right, Regal was kidnapped. I can't go back to that synergy. Doi. We go to... Oh, back to the Tower of Salvation, that's right. It's just not there anymore, but that's where we have to go. Oh, I thought I'd be able to just find it on the map. Got it. We gotta go southeast a little bit. It's a little harder when it's no longer a massive object, right? Oh, I might have read the map wrong. We gotta go, so that'd be northwest. Thinking about the skit in the context of all that relationship building and affinity stuff that we were talking about. And it almost strikes me as an interesting intersection of like the gameplay and the themes of the story, in the sense that it seems like as they're talking about, one of Mythos's core failures was like hinging his entire faith in the world and in people on his relationship with Martel, the single person, so that when she was lost, he was lost and completely threw everything else out. Whereas, you know, you see through the gameplay, as you go through the story with the party, like you demonstrably have the ability to forge a bunch of different relationships with the characters in a way that makes like the whole of the party greater than the sum of its parts, and even makes like your overall like group of playthroughs with the game greater than the sum of its parts, or individual playthroughs. I think that's a really nice way of like showing how that building community can redeem someone like Mythos through what you actually have to do in the game. I'm totally fucking losing it here. Okay, I think now we have to go south and just a little bit east. Okay, yes, this is the hole. Alright. Are we able to go up from here, or do we have to go back to Tefeala? I'm embarrassed at being so lost at this now. No. why that particular sequence of button prompts always gets me. Gotta be a more intuitive way to do it. Now, to the field. There we go. Oh, okay, yeah. Is there an explanation of why we have to use the Tetheala side? I feel like I missed that if there was. If it's the same tower, then this is where I get confused about it being the same place in both worlds again, right? Like I was talking about last stream, because if it is the same tower, shouldn't we be able to get to it from both sides? That is a puzzle to me. Ready as we'll ever be, folks. There's cool symmetry there too, where, you know, Origin forged the sword for Mythos and then was willing to trust Lloyd and the party again based on their desire to treat the worlds differently and make something different than what Mythos had. And so in order to unite the worlds again, like the Eternal Sword itself divides into these two different halves that, you know, represent Lloyd's dual relationship with his dad and the weapon that he uses and everything like that. Really nicely harmonizes, I think. The new right, exactly that, right? It's not that he possesses the right, but that the right itself has been revised in accordance with what the party has determined to do with the world and what they've resolved to make as their impact. Off to a third world. For reference, back when we were talking about Origin's battle track, this was the track that I was talking about, which I believe is called Decision in English. But, like, still to this day, anytime I'm getting ready for some kind of epic battle, metaphorically speaking, in my real life, I'll sometimes put this track on because it just gets me so determined and resolved.
You're gonna regret that.
GLHF. Yeah, I love this area too. Well, that's something I've found pretty consistent across the Tales games too. You can always count on their endgame areas being really interesting and thoughtful and just fun to explore.
Reinforcements, huh?
Spirit seals!
mess with.
I'm tired of this. Are you okay? Devastation.
This is not my favorite battle track. I mean, it's a high bar because there are so many great sound pieces in this game, but I know, especially in comparison with Decision, that track when you're just navigating the area, this feels a little, I don't want to say more generic, but less memorable. Let's put it that way, to me anyway.
Healing circle. Do not bother us.
Moving on up. How are we doing for levels now? Yeah, 63, 64. Not bad. Not bad.
Reinforcements, huh? Are you all ready? No ready.
Photon. So that's the weakness. Try this. Mirage infliction. Field barrier. Evil doesn't stand a chance.
That looks active. No, that's to go back to the beginning. Oh, did I just totally take us around in a circle? Jesus Christ. This way. Alright. Just had to go everywhere else first. Legally, you have to fight the first angel you come across.
Are you okay? That was disappointing. Let's get rid of him quick.
Yes, I had forgotten how spacious it is. It's interesting too, just thinking about the design and like, think back to when you first started the game, right, and just knew Darius Carlon as the Holy Land of Angels. Guessing, if I had to ask you to visualize it back then, this sort of mass of labyrinthian stones floating in this, like, abyssal space is not what you would have imagined. Alright, let's try this way. Nice to still have that run slightly faster EX gem equipped. Oh, you said there's so much running in here, and like now all I can hear in my head are these footsteps of Sheena's. I'm gonna go back to where we were before. I'm pretty sure that was the way forward. If my vague, ancient memory of this game tracks. Yes.
What the?
Oh no, it's a trap!
Yeah, but now we're used to those at least. Like, don't go to Darius Carlin after everything that happened with the run-up to Yggdrasil and don't expect more traps.
Lloyd, I'm sorry. It looks like I'm gonna trouble you again.
The most Colette thing to say in this situation. It's my fault.
Lloyd, help us!
Forget about us. Find a way to evade this trap.
Don't worry about me. Just take care of Mythos.
This is literally just like, take all of the last words of the characters when they sacrifice themselves in the run-up to Yggdrasil and like, okay, what if we put those all in one sentence, one right after the other?
I see. So this is the... Lloyd! Get the Darius emblem! With it you can...
I love that the way they localized the syntax for that is Zello saying, I see, so this is the Lloyd, which is clearly not what he meant. At last, after all this time on our journey together, we witness the Lloyd.
This device is not life-threatening. Please, don't worry.
The most rational girl in the world. Thank you, Presea.
Guys!
Listen, in case you're worrying, it's not actually like last time when Zelos had to save us. We're just gonna hang out, come get us. It's not the same stakes.
Damn! What the hell is going on? What happened to everyone?
Everything is all right. I can feel the presence of your companions. They are somewhere in this city.
All right, let's go find them.
This is nice, though. I mean, jokes aside, that after you have that tremendous like drama and anguish of thinking when you're playing the game for the first time, like I at least really felt going through the Tower of Salvation and having everyone sacrifice themselves, like, oh my god, everyone is falling by the wayside one after the other. But now, like, now that you've kind of overcome that challenge and you also have the support of Origin in remaking the world when it was he who allowed Mythos to make this world the way it is in the first place, it's much more of a comfort, like, no, don't worry, they can try the same thing, but actually you've grown since the last time, so just trust that it's going to be okay. You don't have to go through the same emotional torment that you did before. Back to Elgaia. You thought it was dead the first time. Just get ready for Elgaia 2, Electric Boogaloo. Even deader. Not even any angelic shells with which to deal.
What the?
Oh, I forgot this was voiced.
Why is the mayor?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like the inverse of what happened when they were sacrificing themselves in the run-up to Yggdrasil, where instead of like them voicing why they care about Lloyd, Lloyd gets like a window into who these people are when he's not around.
Be careful. It's an illusion.
You think I'm an illusion? This is exactly why everyone says half-elves are fools.
Rain, my pitiful child.
Oh, I forgot they had this gesture at Genus and Rain's actual mom here.
A tainted child who received only half her elven blood.
Mother?
Half-elves have no place in this world.
That's not true!
It is because you are despicable halflings that I was chased out of Heimdall.
Then why did you give birth to us?
There probably was no choice. That's why you were thrown away after you were born.
Disappear from this world.
Die! There is no meaning for you to live.
Disappear.
Die, now!
Humans and elves. Neither side wants us.
That's right. No one wants you.
I didn't choose to be born like this, yet...
It can't be helped. It's your fault for not being a pureblood.
No, you're wrong.
Love it.
No, they are not wrong. Half-elves are despised and discriminated against for merely being alive. Our existence is a crime.
No, it's not the half-elves' fault.
But
People who can't accept those who are different are the ones to blame. It's because of their weak hearts. Hey, you two. I came to get you.
Lloyd.
Now let's go.
It's hopeless, Rain. You'll just be abandoned again.
Shut the fuck up!
As long as you're a half-elf, the world will continue to hate you.
Lloyd came for us, even though he could have left us behind and faced Mythos.
You'll just be betrayed again, because you're a half-elf.
You may be right, but then again, you may be wrong. It wasn't because of my blood that you abandoned me. It was because of the world that hates my blood, and a mother who was too weak to stand up against it. I'm going to stop hating that weakness. My hatred never changed anything. In order to change the world, I must first change myself. I'm glad I was born a half-elf. It was because of it that I met Lloyd and my other dear friends.
Oh, big time. No, I mean, I think there are a lot of ways in which I get most of my politics through JRPGs. I don't know what that says about me, but I do really think, like, a lot of my interest in ethics and also just, like, even the way I thought as a kid of how to wrap my, little developing brain around issues like discrimination really, like, unironically came from this game, so super grateful to it for so many things.
Genus, do you feel the same? Are you happy that you were born a half-elf?
That's ridiculous. There's no world for half-elves.
Because humans hate us, I hate humans.
Genus!
But I like you, Lloyd. And I like everyone we traveled with, because I think they all like me.
You're an idiot. You're deluding yourself.
I'm the same. Just like those that hate half-elves, I get mad at humans and elves just for being who they are. That's just going to make them hate me more. My heart was weak, too. Is it a sin to be weak-hearted? Not everyone's strong. Not everyone can stand being despised.
Hey, you two.
Lloyd! Thanks for coming.
I'm sorry. I promise to make up for all the trouble we've caused.
Don't worry about it. We're friends, right? Hey, what's this thing that just came floating down?
Yeah, man, I'd forgotten how moving these scenes are. Really ties together all the characters so well.
They're fragments of the mirror.
Maybe they're symbols of the weakness of our hearts.
You should hang on to it. It's proof that you guys beat that weird mirror.
Okay.
Yes, it's a good idea.
I was thinking about this too, because as a kid, I mean, I really thought about these scenes that we're going through here where Lloyd gets everyone back as saying something about the characters and their inner fears and what they need to resolve. And that's all true, right? But I think playing it as an adult, I see it much more as a reflection, no pun intended, I guess, of Mythos. And, like, it just gives us such insight into how he became the way he is based on how he tries to, like, cajole everyone else into thinking the same way that he did, where he really is trying to say, like, yes, every man is an island, because no matter how much trust you extend to other people, they will always betray you, and they will never be worthy of that trust, and they'll never extend the same thing to you. And I think that's like such an interesting and thoughtful way of, especially in a JRPG, where you oftentimes will not see the main antagonist or the final boss that many times across the story for doing something that centers on the party of your characters, but really tells us so much about the antagonist, so the stakes are higher when we confront him. Yeah, absolutely. And how about a game where the characters in the party call out the symbolism in a way that doesn't feel like ham-fisted or forced, where they really are properly motivated to say like, hey, why don't we treat this as a symbol, because that's important to us and it'll help us to make the sense that we want to out of our journey. I love that. Might even be worth writing about, honestly. Absolutely. I hope we can do this with 3 characters. Let's see. The Neglected. Track these names in terms of what the characters have to go through in order to survive and escape their traps that Mythos put them in. Oh, I was totally unprepared in terms of TP though.
You okay? There, first aid! Here!
Pretty good.
Healing circle!
Pretty good.
Rising falcon! Force ice tornado!
Yeah, it's smart symbolism. Right? I mean, I feel like so many stories, and even like I feel like this is a joke amongst JRPG fans, where oftentimes like it'll feel as if a JRPG or a video game story has inserted symbolism just to feel sophisticated or to have, you know, names from other cultures that are interesting or unusual and pique people's interest. So to have symbolism that really feels earned and helps you get more out of the overall story in such a just thoughtful and unadorned way is very, very cool. I think that's a big part of why it's stuck with me into adulthood in the way that it has, to be honest with you. And see, Lloyd can talk them through conquering their darkness, and then we're actually able to join in as a player and help them overcome the symbol of that, adding to the symbolism of the mirror that we've been talking about. Like, what a tight and complementary experience that is. And now, I mean, I've been celebrating this game through the whole stream, but I really feel like as everything is tying together in the end, and I'm able to see as an adult, like, yes, it actually is all tying together really well. It's not just your rose-colored glasses of a game that you played at a really formative time in your childhood. Like, I'm falling in love with it all over again for the right reasons. Yeah, I think we have to go the other way now. Though I wonder, is the save glyph on the other side of this still here? That would be a good get. No, of course it's not. Oh well. We'll be fine. We don't have to save every 5 seconds. We can just knock aggressively on wood. For the benefit of people who are watching for the first time, I found one moment in the game not that long ago in the Ymir Forest where we were trying to navigate a puzzle and it went to like a black transition screen and the game never came back. So now I am super anxious about saving as frequently as possible. Not even because I'm concerned about my own skills, but because I'm concerned about the durability of the game. That is the way we came, my friend. There we go. Just what I was waiting for! Lloyd, take it! Instant shout out to anyone who gets that reference. You hate to see it. It's even darker than the Temple of Darkness.
Where the heck is this funky place?
That might win so far for me for the most zealous line. Where the heck is this funky place?
Hang on a sec. Do you hear a strange sound?
A strange sound?
We'll be sucked into the magic circle.
Oh, crap. Let's get the hell out of here.
That circle is too funky even for me, Sheena.
Ow!
What is this thing?
What's that thing down there?
What's the matter? You'll be caught unless you hurry up and run.
Such a pathetic sight, Zelos. What? Why is Kuchinao?
It's gotta be an illusion. There's no way those two would be here.
You're so stupid. You've shut your eyes to reality for so long that you can't even tell what's real anymore.
You grew up in Mizuho, yet you still can't tell if I'm real or an illusion? You really are a failure.
It's so sad. How did someone so unworthy become the Chosen?
Okay, SMGY10, you know the other Tales games, so help me out here. Since we heard Celeste's first voice acting last stream, I've like had in my head that the VA, I know I've heard from somewhere else. Did they use that same VA in another Tales game, or am I thinking of something that has nothing to do with the series? Do you know?
It's no wonder he betrayed his friends.
Neither of you should have been born. Everyone would have been so much happier had you not been born. You brought misfortune upon the people of Mizuho.
I haven't brought misfortune to...
That's okay. I've only recently become obsessed with following them across games, so maybe that's a weird thing on my part more than anything.
Can you really say you didn't? You, the coward who trembled before Volt and killed your comrades?
One betrayed his friends and then came back shamelessly, and
Yes,
the other killed the people of her village.
No, that one we did get. Someone was kind enough last time to look up the name Scott Melville, I think we decided, because I had called that out more than once on stream, but could never think of or retain that guy's name, and he's such a great voice actor.
A fitting end.
Now, if you think you can run, you'll be devoured by the darkness and die.
Damn it, we're gonna be eaten by that monster unless we do something!
By the way, this is maybe not the most pithy literary analysis, but this is literally how I feel every time I try to work out by going on a treadmill.
You gotta be kidding!
Would you like me to save you, Zelos?
Beg for our forgiveness.
And pledge loyalty to Crucius?
That monster will bestow eternal suffering upon you. If it devours you, you will neither live nor die. You will be trapped in true darkness, tormented in isolation forever.
Again, like, you can think of it as a game to trap them and make them give up, but try to tell me that line is not the, like, most insightful look into the core of Mythos' character. Like, you better believe that's how he, like, understands himself. Tormented in isolation, neither living nor dying. That just suspension of being. That's what happens when you lose faith in
Forever.
literally the world, right?
I can save you. Join us and defeat Lloyd. Then it will all be over.
Lord Mythos has agreed to let the people of Mizuho live.
And he'll remove the title and duties of the Chosen from you and transfer everything to me.
Celeste will gain the power of the Chosen.
Yes! What I've wanted more than anything else. The power of the Chosen. You'll let me have it, won't you? Just imagine. Your life will finally have meaning and value.
All you have to do is pledge your allegiance to me. As soon as you do that, you will be saved from the Shadow's grasp.
I think also, as I'm thinking about it, there's like an interesting way in which you can see these scenes as like an extension of Mythos's whole idea of splitting the world as the way to save it, right? Because almost like if you follow that train of reasoning to its conclusion, it's not enough to just separate two nations to prevent war and conflict, right? You have to separate then different states and then different towns and then different neighborhoods all the way down to like separating at its extreme, like literally every person into their own world, and like purely isolating them such that no one is considered in the context of another, which is like another way of thinking about his age of lifeless beings where there's no relevant difference between anyone, right? So it's, again, like, talk about subtle, talk about nuance, like the game doesn't point that out to you, but we are kind of almost seeing like a window into what it meant for Mythos to split the world, even though we don't have an actual game that lets us play through that with him and his companions.
The people of Mizuho!
Celeste will become the Chosen.
Listen to me, both of you. I've come for you guys. I'm right down below.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! The only thing down there is that monster.
Lloyd! Don't tell me you were eaten by that monster!
That Lloyd is the real illusion. The monster is mimicking his voice to lure you.
I'm not an illusion. Do you think it's better for the people of Mizuho to become part of the Age of Lifeless Beings? Do you think it's okay for Celes to become the next Chosen who could be sacrificed at any time?
But...
Both of you have to decide for yourselves. But I have faith in you. I know you won't run away, even if what we're trying to do is difficult. Don't forget, your lives have value just by being alive and being there.
Just by being alive? My life has value?
A traitor like me has value?
Of course not. No life has any value just by being alive.
This actually has a lot of parallels with the theming and some of the plot structure of what you have to confront in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 also, as I think about it. Which I will super not spoil because I know it's much more recent than the other things we've been talking about, but really, I mean, I never would have thought of sort of those elements of Symphonia's theming had I not just spent so much time in that other world.
Shut up.
It sure does get dark, doesn't it? But then we claw back from that to the light. That's what it's all about. The darker you get, the further you can go in terms of what you overcome.
But if that's not good enough for you, I'll give them another value. They're both valuable because they're my friends.
That's a pretty pathetic value, but I suppose it is.
Zelos, do we have to save you?
You reject my offer?
You know what I wish for, yet you still interfere?
Sorry, but I got no choice. The guy who decided my value believes in me and tells me not to run away. I trust you, Lloyd. I, the sort of valuable Zelos, am headed your way.
Okay, that's tied with the other one for the most Zelos line for me.
Looks like you beat me to it.
Are you running away again?
I'll raise the entire village of Mizuho.
I am not running. The people of Mizuho are waiting for us to reunite the worlds. Betraying that trust would truly be running away.
Also, like, again, with the limited like graphical and animation quality that they had available in 2003, like just think about the symbolism of literally just this trap, right? Where they're like running towards something from their past that is a misrepresentation or an escape, like running towards these illusory manifestations of Mizuho and Celeste that kind of guilt them into things. They're running towards that in order to escape from what they see as like the darkness in their own past or hearts, that abyss that's behind them. Right? It's like, it's so simple. They don't say anything about it, but what a cool way to use fantasy elements to really like capture not only the nature of characters, but also what the villain is trying to make them see in themselves.
Damnation or salvation? Guess there's only one way to find out.
That could also be the thesis statement of the game.
Welcome back, you two.
It's not like I can really run away from the fact that I was born.
Exactly. Especially since we now have our newfound pathetic value and all. I'm gonna try and face my challenges head on.
It's really not letting go of how disappointed he is in being Lloyd's friend.
Yeah, running won't solve anything.
What possible value does one burden to exist with cursed blood have? Sometimes running's the only way to save yourself. Humans are so arrogant.
And that right there, Mythos' last line, like what a great way to tie the like the physical running of the trap in with the
What is
theme of
that?
running away without belaboring it in a way that feels disingenuous.
A spider figurine?
But it's broken in half. It's kind of creepy.
Maybe it's an admonition to not run away.
I guess that's one way to look at it.
Maybe it is. I'm gonna hang on to it as a reminder.
Alright. 2 out of 3 confrontations. Oh, I should probably reorganize the party first. Yeah, that's fair, but I'm only temporarily running away. It's different.
This is gonna be cake.
This is a great battle track, too.
Healing circle! Rising falcon! Messed up. Rising falcon! Healing circle!
Fugitive is what this one's called. Makes sense for someone who's always running away, feeling the need to hide and isolate. Another face of Mythos, we might say.
Ready? Acute this!
Sonic thrust!
That was disappointing.
Redemption. Interesting too, notice the juxtaposition with the last one. The last one said after you beat it that the light lost its power, and now we have become the light. Different sides to us too, not just Mythos. Beat the Age is the name of that track? Is that what you mean? Oh, Beat the Angel. That would make sense as a name for it. Well, I'm gonna have to look that up, and if you're right, I'm gonna gratuitously slap that during my day. Thank you. Good looking out. I don't remember where the last one is. We'll find them. No, not the Devil's Arm. We got that already. I know. I feel like whatever we decide on how many side quests we want to do, I do feel like I have to do the Devil's Arms, because it's just like, I mean, come on, that's the side quest in all of these, right? All right, well, we got a nice tour of the tower and learned that it was not where we were supposed to go. Oy, oy, oy. My memory is better than I thought it might be, but it is not perfect. No. Oh, that's right. There's the prison where they were held before. I forgot there was another area. Otherwise I would have gone here first. But hey, we got to unwind and enjoy a classic piece of Crucius architecture. That very boring tower. So can't we say it was worth it all along?
I'll save you guys.
Two formerly soulless girls, if ever there were a pair.
Wasn't that Lloyd just now?
Yes, he disappeared.
What could... Oh! It opened. I wonder if it's a trap.
What? No! And Darius Carla? No!
Even if it is, remaining here indefinitely...
You're right. They'll all be worried.
I'm so glad you two are safe. Alicia.
Huh? Why?
It's a trap. You know, make you suffer.
Please wait. I'll take you to Lloyd.
Something's not right. Alicia passed away, didn't she?
Yes. She was murdered.
Oh.
Then what am I, Presea? Even though I'm right here, breathing, my very own sister insists that I'm dead? It's true that I was murdered by Regal, but here I am, alive in front of you. Isn't that enough?
No. This feeling... It's not Alicia. Don't lead Presea astray! Presea!
We don't know for certain it's an illusion. Presea, you believe me, don't you? Thank you.
This isn't right. Lloyd destroyed the X-Sphere.
Stop. If you don't stop. You're my sister's friend, and yet you're trying to kill me. I can't believe it.
Presea, don't be fooled. Alicia's aura didn't feel like this.
If you want to kill Alicia, you must face me first. Prepare yourself.
Stop it! Both of you!
Lloyd's voice. Is this an illusion too?
But there's blood. I feel an evil presence from that blood. Be careful, Presea.
I remember being pretty severely haunted by that puddle of blood as a kid playing this. Like, my little brain truly didn't know how to make sense of it.
No! This blood is Lloyd's blood!
It's a pretty disconcerting image.
It doesn't matter. Just settle down. Why are you fighting each other? You're supposed to be friends.
Lloyd.
Lloyd!
Why did you stop attacking? But, Colette, why don't you just cooperate and let yourself be killed?
Ugh.
You felt guilty for so long not being able to die as the Chosen. So why do you resist now?
Yeah, literally the disembodied voice of reason, right?
Here's your chance to end it all.
Yes. Once you're dead, my sister will take your body. If you kill, you will surely go mad with guilt. People must be punished for their crimes.
Both of you! Get a hold of yourselves! Don't confuse who you should be fighting! Dying won't settle anything! Killing won't solve anything.
That is merely logic. People are not moved by logic. If the one you love is killed, you hate the murderer. And murderers must be punished.
This is, as I'm thinking about it now, this is also a really good example of the kind of JRPG trope where, like, the final battle with the boss, like, yeah, there's an actual battle, but almost more important is the, like, philosophical confrontation through words with him. And in so many ways, to me, like, these three scenes are kind of Lloyd's real battle with Mythos in terms of what they stand for and asserting their values. It's nice the way the game ties that together, kind of, again, add more value to what it means to ultimately overcome that antagonist.
But if you keep killing people like that, it'll only spawn new hate and new revenge. Besides, you're just running away if you die. You'll forget the murder and the pain of that crime.
Spawn new hate. dying won't settle anything? Then what should I do about my regrets and lost dreams? And what are those people that died because of your decisions?
It's true that Alicia died, and countless others have died waiting for the world to regenerate. But there's no way they would want us to hurt one another like this. Revenge and self-sacrifice are both selfish.
You're right. You must be the real Lloyd.
I have played Berseria. It's one that I want to go back to because I played it a while ago at this point, back in 2017, but I remember really loving it at the time and feeling that it was different than the other Tales games I had played before in ways that were ambitious but really worked with the heart of the series. So it's definitely on my list to revisit during this binge that I'm working through right now. Yeah, definitely a different North Star on Velvet's compass. There's no doubt about that. Yes, yeah.
And that Alicia is a fake. Alicia wouldn't say things like that. Are you going to kill me?
Stop deceiving my friends. I came to get you guys.
I'm sorry, Lloyd. Somewhere in my heart, I felt that if I had died and become Martel, the world would not have suffered, even though I know that countless people would be sacrificed to bring about the age of lifeless beings. I closed off my heart and turned away from people who were trying to atone for their crimes because it was easier to hate than to forgive.
Berseria, you mean? Or Symphonia here?
There are so many things you can do before you die.
No, agreed. Yeah, it's kind of easy to like locate on an overall map of possible protagonists, like most of the main heroes in the game relative to one another. Like, oh, you know, Lloyd is kind of like Luke for these reasons, and they're like a little different than Asbel for these reasons, but Velvet really did stand out to me as kind of far apart from them in terms of just what she stood for and how she engaged with the world and her sense of what it is to save it, which is probably why the game stood out as more ambitious than a lot of them to me in terms of their storytelling with it.
And I don't think everything has to be forgiven, but no matter how painful things may be, you just can't dwell on the past.
You're right. I will stop allowing myself to be trapped in the past. We're going to make a new world. No. We're going to restore the world to the way it should be.
And thus you forget the past, the countless lives that were lost, and the pain of those that suffered. Crimes must be met with punishment.
What's that?
A knife? There are nicks all over the blade.
Maybe it's a symbol of your past.
Yeah, it probably is. Yes. So that we may never fight amongst ourselves again.
Love it. Did you all have a favorite one of those scenes? They're all so interesting for their own reasons. I think that middle scene of them running away by running towards something that's fake is really just an impactful image to me. But yeah, they're like short stories in themselves, right? Like each one of those has so much emotional impact, and they are all distinct from one another. That's really cool. I don't know, guys. I'm starting to think this game might be something to it. In this run-up to the final boss in this JRPG, you face Original Sin. Be judged.
You're in for a
The judge.
Are you all ready?
Here I go! Mirage Infliction!
So I think we've talked about how all of these kind of represent a different face of Mythos and what made him the way he is. I think it's really interesting then to see them in concert with one another, because we have the first one was Neglect, right? And the second one was The Fugitive, and the third one was The Judged. And
Do not bother us.
I mean, especially when the game invites you to treat it symbolically, there are so many different ways that you can read, like, why that trinity, how does that explain mythos? But at least on this playthrough, the thing that really strikes me is this idea that, you know, in the first one with Genus and Rain, you had this idea of, like, distrust of the other, and that people will always let you down or resent you or judge you unfairly. And then in the second one with Sheena and Zelos, you have this, like, distrust of the self, like you're never going to be good enough or be able to live up to other people's expectations. And then here in this third one, you have the idea of crimes should be met with punishment and we need to pay for sins. So it's like, you can see how damning and challenging it would be to live with a worldview like that if you felt like things needed to be rectified in the world, but no one, not even yourself, could be trusted to make things right. Then you got to just split everything up and, you know, prevent any kind of conflict or even interaction from happening. It's like sad, but it makes something really abstract like the Age of Lifeless Beings much more relatable for me, honestly. Yeah, I was saying at the start of this, I actually have never watched the anime. I have a version that I love for the art, because it was one of the special versions that they did that I found when I visited Japan a few years ago. But it was like the Japanese version, so I don't think they had subs or anything like that. But it is on my list, so especially with you giving it that vote of confidence, I'll have to watch it. Saved everyone and overcame the conceptual mini-bosses that bound them. Go team! Is that a thing? I'm so embarrassingly novice to streaming. I didn't even know that. But like watching anime and stuff, that's equally appealing in streaming format. Okay. I'll have to check that out. maybe that would be a nice coda to the series after we do the sequel to the game, like the game sequel, than to go back and watch the anime. Regal! My man.
Get
Too
out
long.
of my mind!
It's Regal!
He's too strong. I can't...
Mythos! Get away from him!
How dare you, human! You son of Kratos!
What a, like, that turn of phrase, son of Kratos. Oh, it says so much.
How dare you give me orders?
Well, what's going on?
Mortel! How could you?
Human. Your kind must not be allowed to live.
How far are you willing to go to take control of the mana?
I'll never forgive you. You humans are all the same!
What's going on? Mythos, Ewan, Dad!
Lloyd, these are images from Mythos' memory. Get a hold of yourself.
Why do you interfere? We both want the same thing! I just wanted to save the world and my sister. To have a world where no one will be persecuted.
Regal, are you okay?
Lloyd, thanks. I apologize for all the trouble.
Trouble? You're the one that saved me, remember?
It was all I could think of at the time. There might have been a better way.
No point worrying about it now, right? It worked out in the end. We're both okay. That's all that matters.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry.
But you have Mythos' Crucius crystal on you.
It's fine. It looks like he's gone.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. I think the point of distinction that was jumping out to me when Mythos was kind of getting that last jab in at Lloyd this time around was I think they just have very different ideas of what is adequate for something to be a world, right? Like, because that's what this turns on, right? In a sense, they both want a world without discrimination, but the kind of way Mythos is going about it is no world at all, because he kind of has no concept for making sense of positive interactions between people and developing community, whereas Lloyd is really insisting, no, I want to figure out how to empower people to create a world that can be singular and actually is all about that sense of community. But Lloyd has also had a lot of support to help him have the strength of character to go on and fight for that vision. And like Mythos himself said, it's not everyone is strong, and it's hard to say that it's a sin to not be strong-hearted.
What is this?
This is the Darius emblem.
Darius emblem?
It's a seal that blocks the path to Mythos' castle, although I didn't know where it was.
Then with this...
The trap should be deactivated. Let's keep going.
Okay, let's go.
Love it. Yeah, thinking about this conversation that Sheena, Regal, and Presea are having about this too, it's like, especially if you think about the past of the Karlon War with Mythos and his party as, like we were talking about, like, oh, how cool would it be if that were a game, and we got to play through those events. It really is like the history we're learning about is one of kind of another JRPG party. So like when you think of it through that lens, like Mythos' story almost becomes sadder, because imagine like someone like Lloyd who rallied together and led this diverse party of different people with different interests, and they all really supported him, and then to watch things play out where sort of the way that Lloyd is changed pushes everyone else away to the point that they become his enemy, which is basically what's happened to Mythos over the last 4,000 years. Like, ooh, especially when the whole way that JRPG parties are able to achieve everything they do in the first place is through that strength of friendship and supporting each other. To think of Mythos as someone who had that and lost it, I think that alone goes a long way towards understanding how he became so bitter and broken as well. Oh, I was maybe not supposed to go this way. For some reason I thought we were supposed to return to here. I take the point of what the party is saying here about Lloyd's strength and his pact with Origin, or his bond with Origin through the sword, since I guess she knows technically the pact maker, but it did strike me this time that, I mean, he is also pulled in by an illusion. He's sort of the last victim where he risks getting trapped inside of Mythos' memories. And then it's really up to not even the party, but to his specific best friend, in this case Regal, to call him back the same way he did for the rest of the party. So I think that's worth appreciating too. Is this your card? Yes, there we go. What's the description of the Darius emblem? Its use is unknown. Kind of, I do find myself, with how much in love I fall with these games and their world, that some of the item descriptions could be a little more like Miyazaki in terms of like coloring the world even slightly more than they do. But it's nice even to have the items and the symbolism that they beget. Kind of invites you to tell their history more so than to learn it from the game, I guess. And listen to how just that slight change in the song in Decision can make it feel even more as though we were on the precipice of a final confrontation. Doesn't take a big change to really move you as a player going through this. Yeah, thanks. I was trying not to broadcast my anxiety about refinding my way through this this particular labyrinth for the first time. I don't know if we'll do all the extra stuff. We could put that on the list of optional content that we can go back to if people want.
Lloyd, you need to remember that enemy's weakness.
Oh man, you're making me study.
I wanted to
here, too.
summon Origin, man. That was such a buzzkill. That's alright. Those remind me to put Regal back in the party at least. We'll get him out before the day is done here.
Mythos is just ahead.
And the Great Seed should be there too.
This is it, everyone. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm prepared to accept whatever happens in the coming battle. And we will win.
Yeah, we're gonna win. For Mizuho, Corinne, and for all of you who believed in a coward like me.
And for myself too. I don't want anyone else to make the same mistake I did. No one should have to think that he has to sacrifice his own life.
Everyone should be able to live freely, no matter who they are. Humans and elves, and even us. It's okay for us to be here, in this world.
Yes. That's why we must recover the Great Seed from Mythos and revive the giant tree. Without it, not only will we be unable to restore peace between the different races,
The world itself will die. We can't let that happen. We must reunite the worlds. Afterwards, we shall make a new promise to the new world.
The people that I like and the people that I don't both have the right to live in the same world as I do. Because that's the way things should be. So count me in. I won't run from this one.
All right, let's go. We're going to restore a world where everyone can live freely.
Well, I want us to reach the exciting conclusion together, but maybe we can explore a little bit of the castle first. I was thinking the exact same thing about Telos. I really like that final resolution of his. It feels true to his character, but like you said, showing that he's the same, but really having developed and learned from the journey too. And see, if I hadn't royally messed up with Kratos, we wouldn't have gotten that.
Don't let up!
remember spending hours in my end games back as a kid, grinding these angels to beef up my party before the final confrontation.
It looks like it is over.
Always lets me down in a Tales game. There's shelves full of books and nothing for you to read. Because as I've talked about on the stream before, one of my favorite things are all the little really thoughtful and useful bits of world history and lore that they oftentimes put on bookshelves. Demon Seal. That's a good get for a New Game Plus at least.
We have no choice but to Dragon Dance!
Already? Try this! Mirage Infliction!
Just as I expected.
Demon Seer! By now! Devastation!
As expected.
What's that?
So, if you're watching the stream and you haven't played a Tales game before, what we're exploring right now is very much the classic final dungeon where, as you saw in that resolution scene, you really have to do very little in order to actually access the final boss, usually, once you get to that last dungeon. But the dungeon is typically giant with, a bunch of rooms to navigate. It's easy to get lost, and there are tons of optional, pretty challenging puzzles where if you unlock them, you get some of the best endgame items, or sometimes it relates to side quests or things like that. That is part and parcel of the Tales series. So I'm thinking, looking at the time and this nice Friday evening that we've had together, I think I'm gonna try to wrap this up with the final confrontation, and then maybe what I'll do is on Monday, if we want sort of a palate cleanser before diving right back into the sequel, I might make a list of some some content, like really cool side quests, and maybe exploring this a bit to go through together. I think that'll be a better sense of climax than working through this right now and then starting the next stream with the final boss battle. This is a question I have that I've never really thought about before. But actually, honestly, maybe it's the fact that I have played a lot of games like Dark Souls since my first time with Tales of Symphonia. But I fight that, what's it called, the Dark Dragon that we had to fight in order to get to the door to the final confrontation and get the key to that. And I find myself wondering, is there like a lore or an explanation of that dragon? So I don't remember one, and it doesn't seem obvious, but maybe I'm misremembering. Yeah, the key that it drops, the Vinheim key, is just described as the key to the final area in Darius Carlin. But it's such a unusual choice, and feels almost like a non sequitur to have a dragon there, so I want there to be an explanation, and I feel like this game is sufficiently cohesive that there ought to be one, and I'm just missing it. I can't remember either. It's definitely not part of the core lore, so to speak, but it doesn't mean there's not some off the beaten path reference to it somewhere. Alright, let's give this a shot. I can't remember the battle well enough to know if we're under-leveled, but no. Sometimes you gotta just go for it and see how it goes. Let's do this, everyone. Is there a reason here to make a save slot? Oh, does it overwrite your save once you finish it? I don't remember that. Well, better safe than sorry. The way they usually work in my recollection, at least like Abyss did this, which was the one I most recently finished, was they just let you write the New Game Plus to a new file. Well, good to know. Better safe than sorry, right? Cheers. In fact, I'll triple check, because now even talking about it has made me paranoid. There, alright. Now we have 2 files. Had I been playing this without streaming it, you would see like the range of probably 10 or 15 files saved before different key points to try different things, because that's usually how I game, but I've been trying something different for the benefit of the stream. Better safe than sorry, right? Especially back in these old school games where you can make those manual files. Alright, brace yourself, everyone.
I'm going home.
Yeah, talk about iconic lines, right?
Mythos, listen to me. We don't have to fight. Please return the Great Sea to us so that we can reunite the worlds.
Home. I'm going home. Something's wrong. He sounds like a puppet.
What?
I need to thank you for going through all the trouble to bring me back here. I'm finally myself again. Damn. So that's what this was all about.
Mythos, Martel is already dead.
That's not true. Martel is alive, just as I lived on in the Crucius Crystal. That's not living. That's just existing as a lifeless being. What's wrong with that? What? After all, in our bodies flow the bloods of humans and elves, the bloods of those that despise us. We're better off casting aside such filth and become lifeless beings. That's what you really want?
Of course. Watch. When you become a lifeless being, you can even control your appearance and growth.
You could not be more right. It's like... It's kind of all of them, though. The way we're talking about is different faces, though, right? Like, I feel also really strongly bargaining here, right? Where it's like, I'll figure out a way to fix the world, and then I won't feel persecuted all the time, and I'll be deserving of, you know, the love of God or the universe or my sister or whatever. Right?
Everyone should become lifeless beings.
Pretty much everything except acceptance. Well, I guess he's kind of through depression too, because this dude is mad and active. He's not really withdrawing into himself in the depressive sense of that.
I told you before, the only way to eliminate discrimination is for everyone to become the same race.
What you hope for is nothing but a dream, Mythos. Discrimination comes from the heart.
He's right, Mythos. It's the weakness of people's hearts that causes discrimination, looking down upon others while placing themselves too high.
You do the same thing. You look down on humans and elves, treating them like cattle. That's the weakness of your heart.
Even if people become lifeless beings, nothing will change. Discrimination will continue.
Then where should the half-elves go? We aren't accepted anywhere. We opened our hearts, but no one took us in. Where should we live?
You can live anywhere you like.
Don't make me laugh.
I'm serious. Anywhere is fine. If you aren't doing anything wrong, you should just live proudly in the open.
It's because we couldn't do that. That we wanted a place of our own.
Well, that slip tells you everything right there, doesn't it?
Sorry, but don't act like you're the only victim here. It doesn't even come close to justifying all the things that you've done.
What you've done caused meaningless suffering and death to countless people. Can you feel their pain?
People can change, even if they don't change right away. Months, years, as time passes, change is inevitable.
Maybe not everything can be forgiven, but one can try to atone for one's sins. Can't you feel it in your heart? The goddess known as conscience.
Do you think I'm gonna beg for forgiveness? Ridiculous. There is no goddess, so I would continue to pursue my ideals.
It really is sad that, like, the thing that makes him the ultimate villain is kind of that he's like the one person or the one world that the party can't save. So their effort there is just as genuine as it would be with anyone else, or even as it was with, Kratos not that long ago, right? To really try to get him to see and redeem himself and helping to redeem the world. But our boy is too far gone after 4,000 years.
If there is no place where I can live, and if I've been denied my age of lifeless beings, then the only thing left for me is to build a new world on Darris Karlon. A world just for my sister and me.
Here we go.
There's nothing anyone can do. Disappear.
Are you all ready?
Ready!
Demon thing!
Why did the party switch? I thought Rain was here, not Lloyd. Oh. That's okay. We can do without her healing. We're big boys. Just have to be a little more conscious of their health than I was expecting to. That's okay. Yeah, which makes sense. I'm surprised that it didn't give us the usual prompt of reorganize your party so it includes just like auto swap them out for Rain. I forgot he could do that.
Be careful. Holy Lance! Be careful.
Disappear.
Be careful. Holy Lance!
Oh, that's right, the red means their HP is cutting down. Don't love that.
Goodbye.
Judgment!
Oh, Jesus.
Q.
Here, disappear.
Looks like it's ready for status issue.
My sister means everything to me. Maybe anyone can make a way. I'll revert this entire world back to nothingness. None of you understand how I feel.
This is great. I totally forgot about this interstitial dialogue in this fight.
Are you all ready?
Oh, because they couldn't use their arts, that sucks.
We don't stand a chance.
Okay, SMGY 10, so you have obviously played these games before. Help me remember, be my extended mind, because when we fought Yggdrasil last, he did this time stop thing that's coming up, and I had no recollection of that being in the original game. Is that something that they added, or do you remember that in the original, and my memory is just playing tricks on me?
Disappear.
No way! Holy Lance! Be careful! Holy Lance! Target! Spirit Seal! Ready! Guardian! Thrust!
Oh, okay, interesting. So it is something that they added, but they didn't add it to this. They added it to a version over and above the original. That's interesting. There's again, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't played it on the stream, but if you've played Arise, then you know the optional endgame boss that I'm talking about, who uses something very similar, and so I was wondering whether they added it in to kind of highlight the relationship between like that boss in Origin, but yeah, it's interesting to know that it came earlier. Thank you for that that bit of history. It's very helpful.
Be careful.
Got it. Okay, that's why I hadn't had PS2 in my head when we were talking about ports earlier. I wish they just released it all in North America too, man. But alas, not that lucky.
Get away from me.
Those incantations he has, like just the derisive "get away from me," really shows how, in a tragic way, he's just so childish. Like, despite having lived for literally millennia, he's never really been able to evolve and mature because of not being able to get over the loss of his sister, that we talked about.
Get away from me. I messed up. My dream of a world for my sister and me.
It's not over yet.
I don't know what effect they put on that voice acting too, just to make it sound so distant and far off, but that, gives me chills. Just the dreamlike way he says it. Like he's entranced by that vision he has of the world. Remember those 3 faces of Mythos we fought? They've amalgamated. I have heard that, yes. It might be something to play with too. I just wanted to dive back into the story I remembered, dude. But, because we all know that trophies are the most important thing, we did pop the Mystic Art trophy because the summons count as Mystic Arts. But yeah, I definitely want to go back and try that stuff out. I remember the, Lloyd's Mystic Art, whatever the name of it is, that they had in the GameCube version, but like they didn't tell you about it, and you had to know the right combination of buttons to press, and I think it only worked with like the material blade equipped. I was deep in that GameCube game back in the day, dude. That's right, yeah, you needed the title too. Yeah, that's right. Good memory. Yeah, and like it had to be the 3rd Monday in January at 11:53 p.m. Otherwise it wouldn't work. I felt like I always had like one thing I was missing back in the day. It took me forever to figure out how to get it right, even with the guides. This is weird for me, so I don't know whether this is a hot take or not. I don't know enough about people's reception of it, but like for all we've been talking about the music, these final battle themes with Mythos, like they also feel weirdly, I don't want to say uninspired, but like for all the cool music we've been talking about, these feel like sort of generic battle themes for like, you know, the final grand climax of the story. I don't really know what they were trying to express with it. Right? It just feels like, I don't want to say they phoned it in, but when they set such a high standard for themselves, kind of tough to end on this note with the battle track. Yeah. I guess maybe, you know, if you want to see it, there's a lesson there that the other battles that have those more momentous musical tracks are sort of more meaningful in certain ways than this final confrontation. Like it meant more to get Origin on your side than to finally overcome Mythos, for example, as Origin shows up.
Be careful.
Darkness. Martel.
It's over.
That voice acting gets me though. I mean that more than makes up for the music in my mind. All right. Mission accomplished. Yeah, literally the best gem. The max gem. Worth all the new game pluses just to get a bunch of those, am I right?
Mythos is...
It's just like Alicia. Mythos will continue to live as long as the Crucius Crystal exists.
And eventually, I will be taken over by the crystal.
Mythos.
I'm tired of playing your game of good and evil. Hurry up and destroy the crystal. If you don't, Darius Carlon will continue to drift away.
Now we get the depression end of the 5 stages of grief. He just, even in the voicing of the battle with his final form, it just sounds so bereft of any hope or willingness to believe in anything. Really makes it almost sad to complete the battle, to be honest with you.
Mythos.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever crazy enough to do it 36 times, but I definitely replayed it more than once just to build up those gems.
Do it now. Before I... too... am no longer myself.
Lloyd, please, help him! Let him die while he's still himself.
All right.
Farewell, my shadow. You who stand at the end of the path I chose not to follow. I wanted my own world, so I don't regret my choice. I would make the same choice all over again. I will continue to choose this path.
It's the friendship that's stopping him, dude. He came to genuinely care about Mythos in spite of himself. He knows it has to be done, but he can't do. Oh, I think that's really sad.
You could have lived with us in our world. Damn it.
So for all the people who just think of JRPGs as climbing up to killing a god, right? Like, oh, just the human intimacy of this and how sad it is to have stopped him because you get him and you get that he could have walked another path. It's just, that's what JRPGs are all about for me.
The old master of the pact is no more. What does the new master of the pact ask of this sword?
Restore the true form of our two worlds. way back?
I'd forgotten the central role, too, that the summon spirits have at that moment when they're called to reform the world and their relationships with each other, too. Not unlike the party has.
What's going on?
What are you all doing?
Your wish is granted. But there is no link. Without a link, the land will die.
What are you saying?
The world was originally separated into two, in order to prevent its destruction. If it returns to its true form, the world lacks the mana to support itself. The land is dying.
I don't need to know why it's dying. What do we need to do to stop it?
Support the two worlds by linking them with a giant tree. That is the only way to stop the destruction of the land.
I see. We need to revive the great Carlon tree.
I get it.
Lloyd, we must hurry. Before Darius Carlon disappears, expose the great seed to its mana.
All right then. I'm counting on you, Eternal Sword.
Darius Carlon is already at the edge of the gravitational field. Not even Yggdrasil. Mythos could stop this from happening. Do you still intend to try?
Yeah.
Even strengthened by your X-Sphere, it is likely that your body will not withstand the forces. Are you certain of your decision?
I said I'm doing it, so I'm doing it. It's not like we have a choice.
Interesting to compare and contrast Lloyd's stance here with kind of Colette's attitude and others towards self-sacrifice earlier in the game, in different contexts.
Very well.
Right? I don't know if it's so much that the contexts are different or it's just like this is Lloyd's character and no matter how much he would talk other people out of doing it, he'd also be the first to run headlong into that kind of sacrifice.
Being deflected.
The great seed is already dead.
Wait, don't go. Please, wake up.
Just as perfect as I remember it.
Looks like Darius Carlon stopped moving away.
Yeah, but why? The Eternal Sword is gone. The Eternal Sword!
Thank goodness.
This is my final wish. Eternal Sword.
Please awaken the great seed.
I beg you. Please, wake up!
Please!
Rise, giant Carlon tree!
I forgot that she makes it back and is able to bear witness to this. That makes it so much more special to me. She really is maybe the most underappreciated character in this whole saga. There's so much to her, even though she plays such a seemingly minor part. Like there's a reason she is the one who comes back to witness this when all's said and done. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that is the sad thing, right? The more you look at it, there was, even in the present day time, so much like love for Mythos in the world, and yet he couldn't be comforted by any of that or choose a different path by virtue of it, because he was so shut off to it.
I am Martel, and also the incarnation of the Great Seed itself. Lloyd, your hope, as well as those of many others, resurrected me.
So you're Mythos' sister?
No, Mythos' sister Martel is only one of the many souls within me. I am Mana, and I am the giant tree. I am the symbol of the many lives sacrificed to the Great Seed. I am a new spirit born to accompany the giant tree. And now the seed has awakened anew along with me.
Just so perfect.
This is the giant Carmon tree?
It's so beautiful and so grand.
This is the future form of the giant tree, but right now, it is only a small seedling. In its current state, the tree will wither and die.
Well then, how do we protect it?
You must provide the tree with love and
Absolutely.
adoration. As long as those conditions are met, I shall always protect this seedling.
I promise, if the tree ever starts to wither, I'll make sure we won't let it die.
Then Lloyd, on behalf of all living things, I want you to give this tree a new name, as a proof of the pact.
What?
The giant Carlon tree was planted here by the elves when they first came, as a guardian to watch over and protect them. This newly reborn tree protects elves, humans, and the lives of all those who are caught in between. Therefore, this tree requires a new name.
Lloyd, pick a name for us. A name for everyone's tree.
Oh, I might cry. Oh, I'm feeling it.
So this tree is the link that connects the world. Okay, I got it. This tree's name is...
Oh, man. Right. Well, and for those who don't have this, I don't know if this is, like, officially named as the canonical explanation, but my interpretation of it, always reading the game, has been, you know, what you would expect in terms of if you know the background of the names. Like, Yggdrasil is also, like, the name of the great tree from, I want to say, Norse mythology, right? The idea being to honor Mythos, right? And to honor that guy who, like, loved the world so much that he reshaped it in order to try to kind of redeem it in his own twisted and sad way. So really like a thoughtful and touching way of honoring him that really, I think, provides nice closure to the confrontation with him. That was amazing too. I like, among really, you know, impactful and key story moments that I also had totally forgotten about was how Tabitha does, like, not only return but also embody this new spirit that manifests kind of Martel, kind of Mana, kind of everything. And I love that because, honestly, even talking about unexpected connections with other games, like, without spoiling anything for Tales of the Abyss, like, having that fresh in my mind made me think a lot about, like, how if this journey ends with, like, Tabitha becoming Martel, it's almost kind of this interesting transition from at the beginning of the game, you know, the party is going to try to revive this goddess they know nothing about, and that's basically this like fantasy created by this false religion that Mythos and Crucius have enacted. But through the course of the game and learning about the world, they kind of are able to decide what goddess they really want and what virtues they want to uphold the world, such that they're able to mold and impress that upon a literal doll, right, and breathe life into it at the end of the game, so that like the only covenant of the pact is to provide the tree and by extension the world with that love and adoration that Mythos himself wasn't able to recognize and that shut him off from everyone else. Yeah, what a journey indeed, right? Chrissy, thank you for coming through it from beginning to end. I mean, shout out to you, that means a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. You said this was the first Tales game that you played front to back, well, vicariously, as opposed to putting down, right? So, I mean, what are your impressions as a newcomer to Tales when all is said and done? Do you feel like it was worthwhile at the end of the day? I love this art, by the way. I feel like maybe this was also an addition from the GameCube, like original version at least, because I know they've leaned into this in the subsequent games, but I don't remember the specific concept art coming through at the end of the game back when I used to play it all the time. Yeah, I love it. What a cool way to add more texture to the game. If you have a feeling and I have a feeling, that's good enough for me. It's probably an addition. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Well, thank you. I mean, drawing out the little details was a big part of what helped me to see it in a different way and put it in my modern context, but also just being able to do it on stream and have it as more of a conversation and reflection on this stuff as opposed to doing it in a vacuum. I mean, that's really given me a new way of thinking about it too. So thanks to you as much as or more than to me. It takes a village, right? That's what we learned from Lloyd and the gang, and Presea. Remember all the feelings we went through with Presea? As her story unfolded, and we learned it from the structure of the stream too. But yeah, look, I'll be honest. This has gotten me so jazzed for doing more of this. For those of you who didn't come here from With a Terrible Fate or don't know about my background, I've been doing the philosophy of video game narrative for the better part of a decade at this point, but I mostly do it in terms of long-form content and lectures and things that are much more solitary. So this was, even Zelos, and that's the real test of it, right? If a character like Zelos you can have buy-in for, that's the good metric to measure it against. But yeah, so I mean, this was my first time trying to stream anything, and when I heard that this game that really got me into video game stories in the first place back when I was 8 years old was being remastered, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to try something new for myself and a little more conversational with the audience and make it something of a group environment where we can reflect on what these amazing stories have meant to all of us. And that's really been so rewarding for me. I hope it has been and continues to be for all of you too. But all that to say, I started this as part of the broader series that I'm calling, for With a Terrible Fate, Tales of Praxis, which is not just this stream, but also articles that I'm working on, revisiting and thinking about the stories of hopefully most of, if not all of the Tales games. And, as the stream is over, but my thoughts are still ongoing, I definitely want to keep it up with the sequel. And then, as we plow through that, we can even think about which Tales game or other games. I can be flexible, but in the context of this series, what else we want to do after that. So I'm excited for that. I hope, can get some audience input on what we do next. And if we want aspects of the stream to be different, I mean, I could not be more of a novice when it comes to the actual mechanics of a stream. So if you have suggestions or ways that it would be more valuable to you in the future, let me know. But that was, just from the bottom of my heart. I mean, I really do think this is one of those JRPGs that has pretty clear and simple morals, but morals that are made really compelling and emotionally moving by virtue of how much nuance the storytelling has behind it in expressing those things. And so it's really got me feeling warm about the value of friendship and collaboration for all the right reasons. And obviously being able to do it in a stream with you all has only reinforced that.
Grandmother, I'm home.
Oh, chosen one.
No, Grandmother, I'm not a chosen anymore.
Oh, yes, Colette, you have made us all proud.
Welcome home, Colette.
It's good to be home, Father.
I see. So, Kratos will travel with Deres Karlon wherever it may go. What are you going to do? Go back to Iselia?
No. We're going out to visit new lands.
We're going around the world to try and make it easier for half-elves to be accepted.
It sounds like you have a difficult journey ahead of you.
We can return to Iselia when we're tired.
We will always have a home there. Hi everyone, I'm back.
Sheena, I'm so glad you're safe. Congratulations, Sheena.
Ed, don't congratulate me yet. A whole new world lies before us now. We have to inform everyone about the revival of the Igaguri style.
Yes, and for when Kuchinawa returns as well.
Yeah! Come on, everyone. Let's work as hard as we can. We're gonna make the village of Mizuho into a ninja clan to be proud of.
See, look what happened. It's all because the Pope opened up his big mouth and tried to banish me and stuff.
That's the moral of the story. Always trust Zelos.
What would you have me do?
We'll send an emissary of peace to Iselia.
Emissary? Who do you plan to send?
How about Sheena from Mizuho? She's already involved.
So the emissary of death becomes the emissary of peace.
I won't let you say no. Until you do something about the Church of Martel, I still have the rights of the Chosen, remember?
Alicia, I'm finally myself again. Time is finally starting to flow again from that night 16 years ago. You know what? I'm 28 years old now. Can you believe
That's
that?
my age. I didn't even know we would have that overlap. Wow.
I just got back from overseeing the destruction of part of the mine. Now that that's done, we can rest assured that no new
That gives it a whole other level of resonance for me, honestly. Because I have that same, like, dual age perspective going back to this now of feeling like I'm back in time, but also with my time moving forward from here.
I'll help too. I'm sure Alicia and Daddy would have wanted me to.
Love them.
Are you really going to Deres Karlon?
If a half-elf of Crucius remains here, the other half-elves will have no place to live. As a surviving member of Crucius, I must bear the responsibility for what has happened.
I'm going to collect all the X-spheres remaining in this land.
And I will discard all of Crucius's X-spheres into space. I've dragged you into this until the very end.
It's okay.
It's time for me to go. Please use that sword to send us to Deres Karlon.
Goodbye, Dad.
Don't die before I do, Lloyd. My son.
That screen, that line in that moment, oh. I feel that now just like the first time I played this. So few games come close to something like that in terms of closure. Jesus Christ, forget about it, man.
Mom. Dad?
Yeah, that age difference was definitely awkward.
For me to let him go? It was okay, right?
Lloyd, you wanted to go with him, didn't you?
No. I have my own path to follow. And Dad has his. And besides, I have a dad here already.
I see. Then I won't say any more.
Mom, I'll leave Dad's sword here beside you. Well, I'm off.
And Regal's there because he promised to go on the journey with us. Oh, this game. Wow. I think it's worth diving into all the sophistication of it and intellectualizing it and everything, but it's worth it with a game like this because when you see all those pieces, it just comes back at the end of the day to pure, really satisfying feelings for me. Like, I think the way that this game did such a good job of pulling together all its various threads to make you feel one single, just hit you in the face emotion at the end of it, really like set the standard for me in terms of like how I think about video game storytelling. I think this is really a big part of why I now like seek out and pride in particular games that have that sense of coherency where everything in them bends towards a single like narrative meaning. So thank you really to Tales of Symphonia for that. I mean, that is just tremendous. Yes, Finn. Oh, there's a Rammstein reference. What was that? I'm embarrassingly not as familiar with them as I perhaps should be, but I totally missed that. You'll have to tell me. Oh, and we got the trophy of clearing Darius Karlon, the third of the worlds. It's all about the trophies, right? No, obviously not. There we go. Oh, and what a nice, touching final image. It really is. Like, I know they kind of used it as a gimmick to get the series going, the interspersal of like the anime scenes and the hand-drawn stuff with the like video game graphics, but it really does lend a special, almost collage sort of quality to the overall story and experience. Like, I love that. Well, truly, I know I was saying it during the credits, but I'll wrap up by saying just from the bottom of my heart, thank you really for going on this journey with me. Oh, okay, there you go. Well, I'll have to listen to that song by Rammstein to wrap things up and to honor this last leg of the journey. But really, thank you. I mean, I didn't even know what I was getting into when I decided to stream this, but I definitely had a feeling it was going to complement the themes of the game and the value it had to me in the past in just the right way to bring it into the future, like Versailles was talking about with her own journey. That's exactly what it did. So really, thank you. Wouldn't have been able to do this without you. And, you know, if you remain interested and want to keep diving into Tales of Symphonia or keep diving into what makes the storytelling of this overall series so interesting and worthwhile and nuanced as a series, we will be continuing on, I'm going to say, at least for one day with the side quests. I'm going to do some homework over this weekend to see if I can make a list of the ones we can still do at the end of the game and which ones, you know, would make for some fun stuff to stream, and we can go from there. So at least one day, and then after that, I will announce on With a Terrible Fate, but say it here first, that we're going to do Tales of Symphonia 2, Dawn of the New World next. So whether you love it or hate it, whether you want to give it another chance or not, I hope you'll at least stop by and take a look with me and voice whatever it is that you do think about it. So that'll be next week. Same time, same place. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And thank you for coming on the journey with me. I'm Aaron Suduko, the founder of With a Terrible Fate. If you want more streams focused on the storytelling of games, especially JRPGs, since that's what we're spending time on right now, come back to Twitch, check out the VODs on our YouTube channel. And if you want to think more about just what makes the storytelling of video games special and worth studying, withtheterriblefate.com has plenty of content, podcasts, long-form articles, the deepest looks you'll find anywhere on your favorite games. But yeah, thank you for stopping by. And it was nice to have you here, even though it was at the end, SMGY 10, just for the different experience of having conversations with someone who has been through this game and this series many times. So hope you stop back again if you enjoyed this. But with that, I'm going to call it. You enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Game well. Have a great weekend. I hope you have some awesome gaming of your own planned. I'm going to try to wrap up this kind of never-ending piece that I'm working on Tales of the Abyss. So if that's your jam, I hope you look for that to be published. Fingers crossed this coming week. Let me know what you think. I hope you find it valuable. It's giving me a new perspective on the game. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you back same time on Monday. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you. This has been Tales of Praxis, a streaming and article-based series on With a Terrible Fate. Cheers.